Gamers, it is I, the People's Machine, coming back to you with another exciting episode of the Gaming Roundtable, of course, brought to you by Unpaid Gamers. It's currently streaming on YouTube.com, occasionally Twitch, but almost, I'd say 98% of the time YouTube, because that's where we're at. And again, this is episode for September 29th, 2023. And this is Table Talk, and with me is the administrator and the Undertaker, of course, himself, Posthumanguy of the Welcome to the Gaming Roundtable.
Hey, what's up?
All right, man. How have you been? And let's get right into it. And what have you been playing lately? And have you been doing any streaming of late?
Yes and yes. As far as streaming goes, I think the only thing that I have streamed has been, I did Mortal Kombat 1.
Great.
I did the story mode, a couple hours of the story mode. I think that's about all I've streamed so far. Mm-hmm. I think I was going to do a Car Thoughts or I know I did one. I don't know that I uploaded it, though, to be honest. So I think I skipped out on it. Sometimes I'll do that, and I just don't. I don't know. I feel like I ramble too much or something, and I just won't upload it.
Gotcha.
So I think maybe the only thing I've done is Mortal Kombat 1. As far as playing stuff, I've been playing a little bit of Call of Duty, Mortal Kombat 1, Starfield, and I guess that's about it.
Okay.
I feel like there was something on the Switch that I was playing, but I don't remember what it was.
I see. Yeah, man.
Oh, I got a couple things ready on the Switch, but I haven't played them yet.
Gotcha. What have you got ready on the Switch?
So, okay, Digital Eclipse is the studio. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who did like the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection.
Okay, yeah.
The Cowabunga Collection.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So they did. I think it's like the coolest thing ever. But they did the Atari 50.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
And then they did Making of Karateka.
Okay, I did see that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and both are like in the format of like interactive documentaries. So,
okay.
You know, Atari 50, you go through like the years of Atari history, and you'll watch videos, like behind the scenes stuff, interviews, and then you'll play some games along the way.
Oh, neat.
It has like old original Atari stuff. It has like some Jaguar games. It has, you know,
oh, cool,
like a wide variety of stuff. And
very
then,
nice.
Karateka, Making of Karateka is about the same, but like you go through and it's just about that game, and it's like main designer guy. I think he's the only guy who did it, but
okay.
It takes you through interviews and like his previous game before, and then like prototypes of the game that you kind of play through.
Gotcha.
And then you get like the final game, and then like a kind of a new re-envisioned one. So
that's neat.
They kind of call them like the Criterion Collection of games, you know, like
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so. Super cool concept. I haven't played through them yet, but I do have them ready to go on the Switch.
Very good. Locked and loaded, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to play through that and see what that's about.
That's awesome.
I know
that sounds good.
But I haven't experienced it.
That sounds good, man. I mean, those sound really interesting. I have seen them on the storefront, but I haven't looked too much into them and what they're really all about. So, no, that sounds cool. It's something I'm going to check out. I myself have been playing before we went live, but I was telling you, but I'll say for the folks viewing at home or listening, I've been playing more or less MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. It's excellent. I've already uploaded a couple of videos. It's another one of those games that I'm still surprised people are not kind of gravitating towards, because the multiplayer aspect of just people fighting one another you would think would be huge because it's the mechs and the different things and loadouts, but I guess not. But it's an awesome game and harkens me back to the Super NES original MechWarrior I used to play, just on more modern. And I did recommend getting the DLC expansion, the Heroes of the Inner Sphere, so you can just play career mode with no campaign. It pretty much plays indefinitely. And it's great. I love it. And I've also been playing a lot of Cyberpunk 2077 because the update 2.0 came out, and it's the closest that we're going to get to some of the stuff that you do in GTA and stuff. It's just the update alone outside of the expansion is just awesome. Everything good. And I've also been playing Axis Football 2023 because I was kind of in the football mood, but I don't have the money for Madden, obviously, and Madden for some has been hit or miss, so it's nice to see Madden. I decided to do something else and get an alternative football title, which has a remarkably in-depth, insane franchise mode, which I think Axis Football is kind of known for, and a very, very well-designed, creative team with lots and lots of options and logos and everything you can think under the sun, and stadium, and so it's got a lot of stuff that I feel that the older Maddens used to have and don't anymore. So it's weird. It's almost like playing Madden. It's almost like playing like Madden like 06, 07, some of the earlier ones that had a lot of those features. And so I'm actually interested in the 2024 that's coming out next year. So I might ultimately get that just because it's looking really, really nice, like a complete graphic overhaul and things. But those are basically the main 3 games I've been playing. I have played a little bit of, because of MechWarrior, I have been playing some of my other giant robot type games like Gundam. I have a couple of Gundam games I've been playing just kind of here and there, but mainly those 3.
Those other Madden games are some of the best ones too. One of my favorites, I forget exactly which one it was. It was for 360 though, and it was one that did like the franchise with. They had like a talk radio show,
Mm-hmm.
and it would just kind of come in and talk about what's going on that week, and I don't know, I love that one. It was I want to say it was like 2000. Maybe 2005 or something like that.
That might sound right. I remember having on the GameCube Madden, I want to say Madden 2006, and I remember putting it on like a high level of difficulty and spectating, and I put it on, and my dad happened to walk through, and he was like, "Oh, you're watching football," and he sat down in my room. I'll never forget it because Dad's like, "Wait a minute, is that your video game?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, that's like real looking. I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I put it on spectate mode. I'm just watching a couple of favorite teams I like playing." And he said, "Okay." My dad sat there and watched the whole game, which was like he kind of got into it like he was watching a real football because my dad liked football. So it was, and I always liked '06. I thought that was a really good Madden. I think the last one I actually, honest to God, purchased, like new or at least maybe on sale, might have been like 12, maybe. I mean, I just have kind of gotten away from it, but a lot of people do the whole, like you were saying, buy Madden and then buy another one 3 years later, so you're buying them year to year. People do too. But it's like, I know Madden has had a lot of controversy. Even the last one that had Madden on the cover, people were not happy with. This year's Madden, it's funny because the guy on the cover, months ago, had tweeted out something about playing Madden or being Madden, and he said, like, "No, I'm good. I'd rather play my ESPN 2K, whatever the last 2K football was." He said, because it's a much better product. I mean, he was like kind of dogging on Madden, but now he's on the cover, so the new Madden. So it's just kind of, I know watching YouTube videos and people post so much stuff about that game and showing like so much of the bad that happens. I've always thought Madden has incredible presentation, but at the same time, yes, it's been proven that they reuse assets, and yes, it's been proven reusing animations and reusing this and reusing that, and it's Madden coming out every 11 months. It's like, you can't expect them to do up in 11 months. You just can't. So anybody that, again, when I go in...
talked about that stuff. We've talked about that stuff a little bit, and
yeah.
I really... I don't know. I've had gripes about some things with that, over the years, and largely just kind of been about, I don't know. If it's really a problem, like, just don't buy it every year and buy it every couple of years, and it'll probably satisfy you. But, there's a few reasons, of course, to buy it every year. If it's just your thing, or you're into it, or you want to play the new thing. I'm very much like, with really all of the annual release games, right? Like, whether it's Call of Duty, whether it's NBA, whether it's Madden, I do like those games, and I like their gameplay.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit obsessive, personality-wise, in some aspects.
Yeah.
So one of those is, like, if I'm playing that experience, I kind of want to just play kind of the newest current thing. Like, it's going to look the best, it's probably going to play the best, for sports, it's going to have the updated rosters and all that stuff.
Yes.
But I'm an idiot if I buy it and expect a whole new game. Right?
But you see what I'm talking about, the YouTube people almost thinking that they want it to be new.
And the other problem with it, though, I mean, you're buying football. Like, how much different can it be?
Yeah.
What I mean? Like, how much can you really change up Madden to satisfy people like that? So there's a little bit of a unreasonable, thought process going on there. Now, having said that, though, they do have their problems. All those series, I think, definitely ride the fine line of, enhanced gameplay and coasting certain years.
Yes.
Like, there's some years where I'm like, I don't know how much this is really, like, what did they do for the whole year?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting a whole new game, but, like, what did we work on?
Yeah.
And other years it's a whole lot better. I think 2K seemingly kind of is, maybe it's a little more apparent. Maybe it's more apparent to me because I've played them more than the Maddens.
Yeah.
But they definitely kind of put in some new modes here and there.
Yeah.
They do take out some stuff from time to time. There is a new My Career. There's I don't know. It seems like there's regular kind of additions, even if it equals a little bit of subtraction here and there. But Madden, I kind of wonder sometimes really what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought it's interesting when they will tout a feature and say new for this Madden, this new feature, and you're like, well, that was in the game 3 years ago that you took out to put back in, but you're saying it's new, but it's not really new. It's new for that game, but it was not really new. And I know a long time ago, me and you talked about how it's like the wrestling games. They were annual, they were a bunch of games, and you're like, why did they take a feature out that was already there to begin with? Well, but just leave it in. Like, it's are you just out of room on the disc and you can't leave a fee? It's like, which is BS. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, it could have been, but now it's like, no. Yeah, it's like you can't say we had to remove some features because you really didn't have to. I always wondered if they would benefit from, here's the new Madden 24 came out, but then you could say classic Madden, like you could go back to some other rule or feature set from a prior game, like put like a couple other prior games features in there, and you just turn those on as options. I mean, they won't do that, but I just thought, like, we talked about this a lot. We talked about how there are people out there that just expect so much. And at the end of the day, EA, like every game company, they want to make money. And yes, okay, so they made $7 billion in the last few years off of Madden. And the MUT cards make $800 million a year. And and that whole mode there with the cards, and nothing carries over, and you buy a new one, it's a whole nother system, because there are people out there that they're willing to pony up the money, so they spend the money on it, and they get the cards they want, and then they know, well, in about 10 months when the next one comes out, I do this all over again, spend more money. But the point is that it's not that EA doesn't know that, they know that, and so they bank on that, and they want you to spend this money. Now, I'm with you to say, like you said, it's like, well, what the hell? What they sometimes occasionally phone it in, but you could say that about a lot of games if you really stop and look at it. And I think other smaller games that get released, like I was talking about Axis Football, I had no idea that there was a 2018, a 2019, a 2020, a 2021. Like, it's literally, their life cycle though is a little over a year, like a year and 3 months. It's not every like 11 months. It's just, I think the biggest issue for me thinking about it is, if Madden is kind of game you like, then that's the kind of game that people, like. And so if that's what they want to play, I have a strong feeling that people know what they're getting into when they buy it every year. Yeah. If you buy it every year and you immediately go on YouTube after you've had it a day and completely shit on it and complain about it, but then you buy it again the following year expecting it to be different, and then you go on YouTube immediately, because you can watch like year after year the same content creator doing exactly that, and you're like, why are you doing that? Why would you ever, like, what you're getting into? Why would you, I bought it $60 and well, fuck this shit and this and that, and then the new Madden's out, well, I got to do another shitty. It's like, I don't get that or understand that, and I don't necessarily think it's clicking for views. I just think people expect it. Why would you expect it to be 100% different? It was not like it's like Ubisoft. It's like, we're going to take 2 years off from Assassin's Creed. We see it getting stale. We can't do enough with it. We can't put it out every 10, 11 months. They took 2 years off and made Origins, which revitalized the franchise because it changed the way the game was. But that was 2 years, and EA is not about to take 2 years off. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah.
Well, there's a few problems there and a few things that contribute, right? So one factor is it's a licensed game. Right?
Yes.
It's not a movie, but it is a license because it's NFL. So, it's not free for them to make a Madden game.
No, not at all.
And then there's the development time and all this stuff. So even if they start off with a thing, they got to pay those those license fees for every one they release.
Mm-hmm.
There is development there. There's, and like games aren't just black and white, super easy to make, right?
No, not at all.
You add one thing, it breaks a billion things. Like that's the thing, So adding new features, I do understand to some degree why you have to take things out. Like, when they rebooted those WWE games at one point, there was one, was it 21? No. 20.
No, 21 was the 20, bad one. It was 21, wasn't it? Yeah, because that was the last one because Ukes bailed out. Year, right? Yeah, they skipped a year.
23 came out. So 23 came out.
Something like that.
Yeah. A lot of people were saying, it's a little bit bare bones. He was missing a lot of stuff, but they said, well, we had to strip a lot of that out because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
So then you gotta start and build back up. You get a good foundation and then build up from there. So I understand sometimes removing stuff. So that's another part. Another part of that too, still is the people's unrealistic price point things that we have.
Yeah.
We increased these base games to $70 pretty much, and I know it seems like a lot. And that means varying things for various people and incomes and budgets, and so I get it. What can mean $70 to me can mean something completely different to somebody else, and that's cool. But these are multi-million-dollar games with multi-year development times. Back in the day, there were Super Nintendo games that cost $80, $90.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of people don't remember that or aren't old enough to know that. So like, you know, some $90 Super Nintendo game and some multi-million dollar hundreds and hundreds of hours, a game is like way cheaper than some of those games back then that were
Oh
way
yeah,
simpler. Like
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
lucky that games still come out at $70.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's, having said that, there's the fine line of battle passes and season passes and DLC and pay to unlock content and all these special editions that drive me nuts, and the collector's editions and the premium editions and the
Yeah,
elite
yeah,
editions, and
yeah. There's like six editions.
there's
Yeah,
there is a problem there too, but you're kind of just getting like basic level annual enhancements for like the low price of $60. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
No, no.
really. I mean, how big is the Madden team? How much does it cost to run that team for a
Yeah,
year, to pay the license? Like,
yeah.
I
Well, not
don't
to
know. And I
mention
know they're
that,
raking
like,
in the money with Ultimate Team and that kind of stuff, and they're
see,
definitely
yeah.
making money. But there's a lot of factors there, is all I'm saying.
No, no, and you're right. And I would almost venture guess that EA makes the money for them, their company, with the Ultimate Team Mutt stuff. I think most of that money has to go to the NFL because it's like you got to pay our players. You put them in the fucking game, their likenesses. You got to, and that's how many NFL teams and how many fucking players and how many. It's like
And millions of dollars a
they probably
year
get, yeah,
per player.
they probably get a large percentage of that money from Madden. It's a win-win for both of them. The only caveat is, of course, nobody else can make simulation football games with the NFL license. Now, a lot of people say we wish people could because then you'd have competition. Well, they had competition one time, and I remember working at GameStop, and I want to say it might have been like, what year? Let's see here. Go back like 8 or 9. PN 2K, the last 2K NFL game came out, and Madden came out that year. Madden was 60.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, 2K was like, we don't need to charge that, and charged 20. And that review scores across the board was like a point higher than Madden. It had a better animation engine. People liked it more. And it's Madden the very next year, EA is like, we can't fucking have some better NFL game than us, and bought the license. And that was a good business move, but it was also them saying, we don't like that somebody made a better product, so we're going to shut them down. And I think that's kind of sad because
Yeah.
then the next year
It
was
was
all pro.
2K5, by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
NFL 2K5.
yeah, NFL 2. So I remember having that one and having I didn't get Madden that year. I got the other one because it was $20, and I was like, but the 2K series, I remember playing back on the Dreamcast. It was always a very quality product, and so it was really good. Even one of the last, I guess on 360, all pro 2K football, which was not the NFL license, but man, some of this, yes, yeah, some of the stuff in that
Yeah, Jerry
game
Rice
was,
on the cover of it, for
yeah,
sure.
it was incredible. Like you would see a guy going into the end zone, and if you watch the whole replay, and you would see him like he jumps up and he catches the ball, and you watch in slow motion, he comes down, and you see that he lands weird on his foot. He starts to like you could tell it's an injury, and he's limping a little bit, but then he tries to pull the ball, and it's all in slow mo, and he thinks he can step down, so he takes two more steps, and he realizes I can't do this. You can see his foot buckle. The guy looks like he's in pain. He falls down. You're like, you'll never see that in fucking Madden. Like the level of
Yeah.
detail in that game for something so simple was like these motherfuckers.
And
It's
that's the
like
other
holy
thing
shit.
about Madden too is, and the exclusivity is my real only issue with all of it. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to make the same thing over and over and over, and like whatever, I really don't care. And um, again, when I want to play those things, I kind of want to just play the new one. So, I have most of the Maddens. I have
Yeah.
pretty much all the NBA 2Ks. I get most of the Call of Duties. Because, I'm not the guy who's going to play it all season long,
Yeah.
play it to death until the new one comes out and really, really, But I like football. I like basketball. While I'm watching those during the season, I'll want to play those things. And
Yeah.
again, I do want to play with updated rosters, and I'm not going to waste my time. For me, waste my time to update it all manually and stuff. And I just kind of stay current and get them and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But with all those other problems, the other problem too is because it's the only simulation one, and NFL's got that on lockdown with them. They're also very picky about what goes in those games.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be seeing crazy injuries. There's a reason why Blitz the League was not an NFL licensed game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even though all of that stuff at a point at least went on in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
they're
insane.
not going
Yeah.
to allow those type of things in there. So,
I mean, they do have people
really,
people who get injured in the game, but not to the extent. But it's just like, oh, there's an injury on the field. You see the guy walking off holding his arm, but it's like, but
you're not going to see big crazy injuries. You're not going to see,
yeah,
because and like there's a difference between like Blitz and then like Blitz the League. Like Blitz the League, it did get a little over top, but it was pretty reasonable though on what it, like they could really happen, those injuries. It was, very.
Oh yeah.
They kind of kept it good.
Yeah, because the NFL,
see something like that,
Yeah.
or like what you say that you kind of get from those one-off developers and stuff, and like there's a lot of indie football games and stuff out there, like the Axis and
Maximum Football. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, Maximum Football, and there's that one. Was it Legend Bowl? I think that I mentioned.
Legend Bowl. Yeah, that's coming out.
But they're not licensed, and then some of the bigger studios that could potentially do something greater than those, or more, I don't know, bigger budget than those. They're not gonna risk it on a game that's not NFL licensed.
That's true.
People want that.
Mm-hmm.
They just do, So
I think it's interesting.
This, like environment that sucks in a way for us is really what it is.
Yes, it's kind of like I ended up getting that access because I watched enough on it to say, you know what, that's really interesting. And there was a guy that had posted on YouTube talking about the game, and he showed this interesting play that two teams were doing an axis, and then the same exact play, a passing play, in Madden. And he was showing how in Madden, like in the Madden game, and this was 2023, how he said, look, every time I do this pass, the AI defense is covering my receiver. And every single time, interception, no matter what team on this play. And then he showed Axis 2023, and he showed how the receiver, same play, he was being defended, the receiver kind of juked one way, and the other guy kept going from his momentum, then stopped to turn to get back to the guy. But at that point, the receiver had caught the ball and ran with it. And he was showing, like he said, it's interesting because in the Madden games, because they have that rubber banding stuff where it's hard to get 25 touchdowns on a team. He's like, he said in this game, the way the AI is it's just different. They don't have that rubber banding necessarily. So, but that intrigued me enough to make a purchase for $20. It's $20 brand new. So it's like, and when I play it, yes, I will gladly say Madden's presentation is superior, but Axis does still look pretty good. I thought the commentary was interesting on Axis, and I thought different things about it. And yes, it's not the NFL license; they have the same city teams instead of the Minnesota Vikings, or it was the instead of Green Bay Packers, it was like the the Green Bay like steel axes or whatever the fuck, but it's same colors. It's just funny, but when I play it, I was like, well, like doing the franchise mode, it was like, wow, this is insane. Like, and then they have like, you can play the game, you can spectate, you can play the game exhibition. There's a coach thing where the game plays and you're the fucking coach. But I'm also in your camp too. If I was to buy, let's say if I bought the new Madden, I haven't bought a Madden since like 12. So to me, I'd be like, this is spectacular. I know I would be like, this is amazing because I haven't played it in over 10 years. So
Yeah.
so I think like you said, it's one of those things that you could. A lot of people you could easily say, well, fuck it, I'll buy it every couple years. I'll wait. Right? And then you might have a better experience. For anybody, I still think if they're buying it year after year and expecting it to be completely overhauled or something, that expectation is not feasible. Like, it's like you should never expect that. Not from them. Not really from any developer. Not really. Just because that seems ridiculous. Some people have said, well, I bought it and it's essentially a roster update. Well, then you shouldn't have bought it. You should have manually updated your own roster. So it's like, it's no different than me buying, you gave me a code to buy the new wrestling, 2K, 23. And while it was pretty close, I spent like 2 hours updating the roster. Like, I made the champions who the champions are, and I went through, and then I think and then, I'll have to do that like every other month, because so much stuff changes in wrestling. So it's like, but part of the thing is I actually like to do that. I like being able to, oh, this person turned heel, and I'll make them heel now. Oh, they're a champion now, I'll make them this. I take a little pride in saying, or I'll download this person that just joined because they're not part of the game, but the creative player is so good, you can get pretty much dead on the money representation. So it's like, I really like that about the wrestling game. It's like, no, I updated, like, okay, well, Rhea Ripley became the SmackDown champion, right? Like, women's champion. So I was like, gotta make her the SmackDown women's champion now. And it's just, I like doing that. And I think if I owned the Maddens, if I felt like, oh, this person was out on injury and he ain't coming back, or this person got traded or whatever, I would just probably do some of it manually because I kind of like to do that. It's just something that I've always enjoyed. Not everybody now doing on the entire fucking 52 teams, like, no, but at least I know in the wrestling end I can do that. But that's my point. All I'm saying is that for anybody to buy it and expect it to be so different, but I can go through many different content creators' content and go, they bought it and shit on it and then bought next year's and can't figure out why it's not any better, and then they buy it again, and then it's like they're expecting that, like, it to be different all the time, and it's like, there's just no way. There's just no way.
Yeah. And I understand, some people that's all they play. They'll play Madden
Yes.
every year or NBA or
Yeah.
Call of Duty, just that's their one game, and they'll play that till the new one's out. And when you play something that's minimally updated over and over and over, I'm sure that does get a little old and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe branch out, try some other things.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean, like, you can.
I don't know. It's tricky too because we talked about, like, because you mentioned the Axis football, and like for me, I've liked what I've seen from some of those, like certain parts of it, but I've kind of just been waiting until it catches up enough for me to be okay with playing it. Like, cause, when you're used to the big budget Madden and stuff, it's hard to make that jump down to more like
No, I agree.
And stuff,
I agree with you 100%.
And while graphics aren't everything, you get used to a certain standard at a certain point.
No, like, that's true. That's true.
And like for me, I think like top of the line's one thing. Going completely not that and retro is another thing. But then when you're somewhere in the weird middle is where it gets really tricky.
Yeah. I guess for
So
me
like,
it was 20.
because there's
Yeah.
the like Legends Bowl thing. I think is what it was. Whatever one I talked about. That's that retro like kind of
Yeah. Legend of,
pixel
yeah.
art kind of
Yeah.
thing, and like tons of features. Looks really exciting and cool. Like that very bit, and like it's so retro look. Like it becomes a non-factor.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like it's not as sophisticated, but it's more just about the fun and the experience and like the
Yeah.
other stuff around it.
Yeah.
But then when you get something that kind of emulates the Madden experience, for example, and like doesn't do it nearly as good, then it's hard to look past that
Yeah.
and find the good. And not that you can't. It's just it's a challenge.
No, no, I will give you that. I agree with you on that. I guess for me, it was like I really wanted to play a football game, and I didn't have $70 to drop. I just didn't. But 20 is easier for me. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I looked at, like I was like, well, they had them on sale, and I was like, well, they had the older ones. Like, well, 2018 was $5, but I went to 2023 thinking, okay, it's 20. It's normally like 30, I think, and I'm like, I'll buy it. I would rather get the newest, closest one versus buying 18. And so I ended up buying the newest one that I could get. And I walked away with it kind of surprised, even though like the UI and everything's very basic. But it's more or less just, I'm playing football. And some weird little things that would go on the game that I didn't expect. I didn't expect like, you know, I received a ball the other day or today. I was playing Green Bay and against Buffalo, and it wasn't the Bills. It was like the Buffalo Whalers or something. But anyway, I just love when they come up with the team names. They're like, what? What the fuck does Buffalo have anything to do with fucking whale? I guess New York was a whaling town at one point, so I guess it makes sense. But I get the ball, I receive it, and I'm about ready to get tackled on the receiving, and I hit the circle button, and the circle button is supposed to be like where you can like spin around, either whatever, you pick left or right, and you can spin around a guy. Well, instead of spinning around, the guy was going for my. You could tell in the tackle animation he's going for my legs. Instead of spinning, my guy jumped over him, like jumped over the guy because he saw him coming. I was like, did not expect that to happen. I fully expected every time I had ever done it. Time he jumped, because you could tell. I was like, well, oh, he went for my legs, and he would have got me even if I spun. He would, or at least clipped me. I was like, but I jumped and got over him. I just didn't expect that. So it was like,
Yeah.
so I keep finding little tiny little things about that game, juking and jiving, and you'll see like a guy grab you, and then he's running, but you juke to the left, and all you could tell all he got was like your shirt, and it's all these little tiny subtle things that's like, oh, that's pretty cool, just because it was unexpected. Now again, apples to oranges, Madden to this game, it's like, yes, Madden definitely probably all the way around, is a better game. But I will say this: anybody that would be looking for an alternative football game, that simulation, I would say, and I haven't played Maximum Football, even though a lot of people are talking about the new one coming out. It's supposed to be really good. There's YouTube videos on it. But I'd say Axis would be the second, like if you had to have another football game or you wanted another one with a really insane franchise or whatever, that would be a safe bet versus, because you're not going to find anything else. I mean, you're just not.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean,
Well, and that well, some of those have interest in. I looked
mhm.
at it before. Like I said, I kind of just been waiting until it gets to a point that to where it would look or feel good enough for me
Yes.
to a certain extent. But
Hmm.
like, back in the day, I mean, uh, like those early Mads and stuff, they were a lot more basic or around that level of, where
Yeah.
Axis is at or some of the
Hmm.
stuff. And you can go back and play them; they're still really solid.
Yeah.
I went and actually within the past year, I went back and I found a copy of that Madden that I really liked back then, like like 2005.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so, and then like I went and I found, I think it was 2006, which also had like a lot of the same stuff, like the Tony Bruno show and stuff,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
Francesco and all that.
yeah,
But it was like the last one. I think it was that one, but it was the last one that coincided with the NCAA college football,
yeah.
like the
Because
last one they
they stopped
made.
making those too because the whole weird the players wanting money and they're like, we can't pay you, and there was a bunch of hoopla over that, which is funny because I used to actually buy the NCAA football games because I did like the college games because they were different. They didn't really play like Madden. They played more like college ball. College to me is interesting to watch versus pro, only because the college people they ain't being paid. They play it for pure passion to maybe one day
Yeah.
get paid. I mean, although you could probably deep dive and they kind of get paid, sort of. It's like or whatever, but. And I also remember NF that were licensed, and I don't know if you ever played it. I owned it on 360, and I only think they made maybe two or three of them. I actually owned EA's Arena football games, just because I thought that was. I actually went to an Arena football
I
game
remember
one
them making
time.
it. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
they.
remember
I think they
them
made.
doing it.
I think they made two of them or three of them total, and it's funny because it seemed like there for a while, but you know what? EA for me years ago, like if I was going to buy any sports title, because I was big into hockey for a while, I always bought the NHL stuff. I liked hockey. I used to watch hockey, and it was like
There
not
was
like
a point where EA
religiously.
was top notch.
Yeah, yeah, they made everything. Everything was good. NHL was good. If you wanted college football, you wanted pro football, you wanted arena football, you wanted soccer, you wanted this, you wanted. I mean, me and you talk. I think not too long ago. Well, it might have been a couple years ago. So, but we don't talk about it. They don't make them no more because UFC kind of took over. And I'm not. I've never played in the UFC games. I hear they're good, but we used to love that fight night. The fight
Yeah.
night. Those were great. I think I had 3 and 4, and just I remember being at your house and showing the slow mo of just hitting the guy in slow mo in the face and the waves and the sound. It was
Yeah,
so
it was
funny.
hilarious, and they were solid
Yeah,
games for
those
sure.
were so good. And I remember they used early facial scan technology. You put me in the game, you in the game, and it was just. And you know what? I was like, it sucks that boxing ain't as prolific as UFC because if they put out if EA put out another fight night like tomorrow, I'd probably go get it just because
Yeah.
they were just such cool games. But now it's funny because I've had times seen like UFC game on like cheap, like for sale, like oh it's on sale for $10, and I've almost toyed with buying it because I have watched UFC not religiously, but I'm enough in the peripheral to know who the big names are, right? So it's like, and I have watched some fights. Yeah, I'll go on YouTube and watch UFC knockouts or who. Well, I'm interested in seeing them two fights. So I've
Yeah.
always toyed with the idea of buying those because I thought, well, that might be something to play, and you can make
I've had a
characters and
couple of
stuff.
them over the
Yeah,
years. They're really difficult.
yeah, that's what I hear. I've heard that.
Yeah. There's a new one coming out too.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that.
Um,
I know
but
though.
another cool thing, before we get too far removed from that, about the NCAA college football,
Yes, you were saying yes.
back in there, you know, so if you got kind of the same versions and stuff, you can export your college class into Madden
Yes,
and stuff like that. So,
that's really
yeah,
neat. Yeah,
I had actually went back because it still works. It doesn't use servers or any of that stuff. It's just game saves.
yeah, yeah.
So I went like this past year and got like the last one they made of the college football, which still, because of what it is and because it was the last one, like it still goes for what I would consider a hefty price tag for a good
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
I forget
yeah.
what I paid for it. It wasn't outrageous, but I was like, geez. But I wanted it though in my library, so I'd got that, and I'd got the corresponding Madden, so I could do that exporting. You know,
That's really
like
neat. Yeah,
play through a college career and then bring my players straight into Madden and do that.
which is really
Um,
neat. Yeah,
and it'd be cool. They are bringing back that college series again.
that's
Actually,
what I
I
heard.
think
Yeah, I heard
next
about
year.
that. Yeah, like I mean,
Um,
I'd be
I think
interested in buying that just because it's
it won't have
college.
all the teams, but it will have It will have quite a few.
Yeah, I think, like I
Um,
said, just to kind of like, it's nice to talk about Madden and alternatives and stuff like that, because I think a lot of games out there, like you said, EA at one time, they were like the sports people. They had the EA Big series too. They had like NFL Street and NBA, whatever, just different like arcadey like type games, including like SSX Tricky, and then the big thing went under, and now EA on the sports end, it's like basically golf and UFC and Madden, and they're not making a whole lot of other
it's very
types.
stale.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Very
nowhere
stale.
near
And
as where it
there's all the
was.
problems that they have with like I say, the factors that go into development and kind of in defense to some degree. But at the same time, there's when you play Madden and what it used to be, and then you
Yeah,
play a Madden now, like 20 something years later. Um, when I play it, while there's a ton of stuff there, there's a ton of modes and features and things, and you can spend hours and hours. There's still like a lot missing that I feel like it should have.
yeah,
It doesn't feel like I'm playing a football game that's 20 years later than when I played before, in a sense. Like,
yeah,
of course it looks better. All that's progressed that amount of time, but like, I don't know, like it. And I understand it gets complicated with college and licensing and players and all this, and there's a big thing, and they're working that out. But like when you think about how cool something as simple as playing a college experience and then bringing it forward into pro, like, I mean, fuck, like 20 years later, and we don't have an equivalent to that or
no,
something
no,
like
we
that,
don't.
like.
Yeah, we don't.
And there's superstar modes or like kind of career modes you can play that's
Hmm.
like the NBA 2K that's in the Madden. Like you can play franchise and you can play those. I think they renamed it this
Hmm.
year. Maybe it's superstar mode again, or they reverted back to something. I forget. Um, but like you still just have a couple positions to pick from. It's not like you can play like any position and
Yeah.
like experience all that from any perspective.
Hmm.
It still feels very limited, and I think a lot of the things feel limited because they're focusing on other stuff like Ultimate Team and
Yeah. And that's where their money's at,
whatever
which
else.
makes sense. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I get it. It's like, but if you're gonna have the lockdown on simulation, like I feel like you need to be moving a little more ground in some areas because there's so much potential and so much like I don't know, like when you like a silly term, but like when you kind of fantasize on what like the ultimate like sports football game or whatever, like
yeah, yeah,
like this is what we used to be able to do. This is what we there's a there's a big void for that, I think, and I think that's what drives people into complaining about Madden
yeah. I think
is
it's
that
one of the,
feeling,
yeah.
and that's where games
Yeah,
like you talk about like with the Axis football and the Maxim football, like they can really you're fighting against the no license thing, but they can really do some great stuff.
yeah,
And innovating in ways that Madden's not progressing. Because if you
yeah.
remember back in the day, there was like, there was the Madden football, there was like NFL Game Day, like
Mm-hmm.
there was the quarterback, like getting older, of course, but like quarterback
Quarterback
club and
club. Yeah,
Troyman and football, and like
yeah, yeah,
you had all these offshoot, just one-off things or separate series, and like now it's you got Madden or you got something with no license.
yeah. I think the it both like helps and hurts, because it's like, it's all well and good. I like Axis, but it's like, my favorite team is Minnesota Vikings. Instead, I gotta like play as the Minnesota Shipbuilders. It's like, and it's even worse when it's like they have to, in a roundabout way, like, okay, well, it is the actual players. It may not be their likenesses, but the names are so close, but they're not close enough to get sued. So it's like, but at the same token, by having that license, they're like, we can do whatever the fuck we want. nobody, NFL can't come to us and say, hey, look, you can't copyright a city name, and you can't copyright colors, and you can't copy, you know what I mean? I remember, and you'll probably remember this because I think me and you both owned it, and they did a really crazy, awesome update that really helped improve the game. But I used to love playing Backbreaker, and Backbreaker was really cool because it utilized that Gears of War like drop camera, and even though it did not have the teams, I remember going in and literally making the Dallas Cowboys and made the star and made the symbol, and you could draw stuff. And it took me time. I couldn't do anything real intricate, but I could do like the Rams and stuff. But I tell you, that was a game that I ended up really liking. But like you said, it's another one of those things where it's, the licensing that NFL does with EA is exclusive, and your alternatives is almost negligent. But I also feel like if EA had competition, and in 2K5, they would step up. 2K5, they kind of lost out by a point on reviews and sales point because at $20 they couldn't compete, and they were so upset by that they bought the license to spite them, mainly to be like, how dare you make a better product than us? That's not cool. And it's like, well, then you should in turn make a better product. I'd always go back to WWE, WWF, the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. It's like because WCW was so hot, WWE had to come up with hot, and they just jousted back and forth for 82 weeks. And it was like 82 weeks, WCW was killing them, but it was like we got the birth of The Rock and Stone Cold and all that stuff that everybody remembers so fondly. And it's kind of like, because competition was there, it really they each were trying to one up and step up their game between them both. And I thought that made it better. And now when you look at like 2K versus this, interestingly enough, people always come talk about the Madden thing. I'm like, well, it's interesting because at one point there was 2K, the NBA 2K, and NBA Live. And Live came out a few years ago, like 2-3 years in a row, and just completely died because they couldn't compete with 2K because NBA 2K is awesome.
Really is good.
Yeah, so it's the exact opposite effect.
What, and I bought one too a couple of years ago, and the only
reason
I bought it, the only reason I bought it is because they bundled it with they brought back NBA Jam.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I remember playing back in the day on the PlayStation NBA Live, PlayStation 1, NBA Live like 98. But I remember NBA Live being like the
good ones.
Yeah, they were the good. They were the, yeah. 2K came along. I remember on the Dreamcast I had played NFL 2, the first 2K and the first 2K basketball, and they were fantastic. And I just think that with no competition, EA really doesn't have to worry about like being like innovating because, well, we don't have to. Who cares? You're going to buy us.
It's funny because the EA situation really mirrors WWE, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly.
Like you said that, and then now, WWE, I mean, there's AEW now that you can really kind of say is somewhat competition. But, WWE is the king of the market, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a world phenomenon, not, a successful U.S. business. So, but, because of that really no competition in their space and in their element, even if you argue now there is competition, like prior to now, even, like they just got as stale as EA.
Yeah, because you watch, you think about watching 3 hours of Raw, and I'm like, I watched 3 hours of Raw and saw 20 minutes of wrestling. That's it. Because it's mostly promos and people assing off in comedy, and it's terrible. And like the Bloodline stuff's cool, but it's really good. But it's starting to run. But I look at it like, when I think about it, like anybody can say it's all well and good that, wow, WWE had like 2 million people watching Raw this week. Yeah, in the Attitude Era, they had 17 million people. What's changed? It's like, exactly, because I don't watch it. I listen to Jim Cornette and get my review there, or I find out something cool happened and I YouTube the clip to see what happened. Oh, The Rock came back on SmackDown? I'll watch that. Or this cool thing happened with Cody Rhodes? I'm definitely watching that. But it's like, it's very pick and choosy, but most of the people I don't give a fuck about. Like, I think I play, when I can play the video game and the video game's more interesting, I can make better, interesting things happen on the video game. It's pretty bad, That's a whole other can of worms.
Here's something I feel like these games need, and maybe one of them has it and I don't know it. Okay, I know like on the non-licensed football stuff, I know there's like logo editors and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But do any of them have like a community creation for that? Or
no.
A way to upload your own?
No. As far as I know, Axis does not, and I haven't deep dived into Maximum Football. The interesting thing about Maximum is the last one released on console was 2020. I know for a fact that 2020 there's a Maximum Football 2023, and I know there's a 2022. I don't know about 2021, but the last one on console was 2020, which is weird that they didn't release the other ones, which could be.
And I realize, having said that, you can do all that on PC, but I'm talking about.
Yes, I don't think Axis does not have a community share thing, which would be awesome if they did. It would make sense.
That's what it needs.
Yeah, but I think that would be really good. But then you get into it. There also could be some NFL caveats there where they're like, well, if someone makes our NFL teams, shouldn't we get a little slice of that? So, you know what I mean?
They might have some potential for like cease and assist stuff, but
yeah.
I don't know. Community creations though are pretty wide open. I mean, if that's the case, then like you go on WWE and you're downloading Marvel characters and stuff. Like,
true, and I don't think Disney's getting any kind of back royalties for that stuff.
So maybe there's some protection there, but either way, you could police that by just having like report this thing and I don't know, it could be avoided, but like I feel like if you had a community creations with like logo editor and image editor and things like that, or the ability to like upload your own, like you just got to run the website to do so, and a little bit of server kind of thing for that. And you could keep it pretty minimum, even if you didn't do community, like just have to where you could go and like how you can do the WWE or the NBA upload your face. Like if you could just upload your your created logo and then you download it to your only thing, that would really help with the people that have an issue with license.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. They just don't.
And that would help me. Like it wouldn't be a big deal just to upload all of the team logos for me and make my
make your teams
league there and
I
mean, I realize it's just a picture, but some people it makes a big difference for. And
I absolutely.
If they put that in, and I don't know why they wouldn't, like it's not that hard to put something like that in. I don't think.
No.
Legal challenges there.
It's one of the things that I like about the communications in WWE games. Way back when, I used to love like making the wrestlers, and that may not be in the game or old wrestlers or whatever. Not necessarily my own creations, just, Hulk Hogan's not in the game, I'll make them. But it was like, the creation suite is so extensive and takes so long to do that, I just get other people's downloads. It's much easier, I guess I'm lazy, but it's just, but you're right, I think if they had some kind of communication in a football game like that, I think people would be like, oh, okay, that might be a little bit better option for me to do that. Now, I will say, when they talk about, and I've mentioned this in my Handball 21 video, handball is an interesting sport to watch. I watch it during the Olympics, but it's a big sport overseas. You just don't hear about it here. But interestingly enough, I bought the game a couple years ago right around, it was on sale like Christmas time. When January first hit, I got an update, and it was a roster update. It changed my entire roster to reflect the new season coming up. I was like, I've never seen a sports game really do that, like for free. And I thought that was interesting. But I said, but it's handball, so whatever. But at the same token, it's interesting that that was a thing it did. What I didn't realize with 2021, because they haven't made any other ones, was this year it updated at some point, and I got this season's roster, so it just did it like 2 years in a row. I'm like, that's mind-boggling to me.
I have seen some do that. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of what it was. I feel like now, of course, you can do like community rosters for just about anything.
Yeah.
Like Madden or NBA, and now, of course, at a certain point, you got to worry when they're disabling the servers. You don't keep them up long at all anymore. Like I just seen a thing, they're disabling WWE 2K22 servers now, or 23.
Interesting.
It's only going to be the current one.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So no community creations on that one at all anymore. None of that stuff. Only the new one. But I have seen like official rosters. I feel like NBA 2K did that before.
I think it did.
I feel like official rosters released for the new rosters on the old game. I feel like they've done that a handful of times. I don't know if they still do it or not, and I just get the new ones now, but I think they have done it too. And I know, like Mutant League Football, for example.
Yes,
I know
yes.
It's not real players and not that kind of stuff.
I own that game.
But they're still doing DLC for it.
Teams and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I do own that actually. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Those support for older games sometimes.
Yeah, but it's good to see because far too often, especially in the modern gaming world that we live in, it's this game failed, so let's write the whole fucking thing off. You're pretty much fucked. So it's like, yeah. But no, this has been great because I don't think we usually discuss a lot of different things, but to discuss sports titles, I think a lot of people would be surprised given that the stuff that I personally play, or even you personally play or stream, I mean, we rarely ever talk about, we are sports fans. We do like it. And if anything, we want to see our games get better, which I've always believed in constructive criticism. I don't criticize a game because I hate it. I criticize it because I want it to get better. I want to see improvement in something. And that's what you want.
It's football season, so it's a good time to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so while I may not, and it's nice because I am going to be doing some uploads on Axis to show people, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, it ain't Madden, but for $20, if you just want an alternative title with a pretty decent amount of options from pro difficulty and rookie difficulty, you got sideline stuff you got when you're before the snap and pre-snap, and you can audible and you can see all the route lines. You can do button passing or you can do manual passing with the stick. So there's all these weird little tiny things in the game that, while if you were to look at it, you think very much to this game, but there's a lot more. And so I want to make a video just kind of showcasing Axis, and not to say it's better or anything. It's just, it's an alternative. Right. So, and I think anybody, and that's something that I would like to emphasize, hey, we get it. We know you'd rather play this, but if you really wanted to play something that harkens back to some of the stuff that you have been missing out of Madden, play Axis, because Axis is going to give you that. So no, it's been good. I think people would be surprised that we are, if they know us and listen to us and watch us and subscribe to our channel, oh, these guys actually play sports games. Yeah, we do. We like them. The funny thing is,
if you like the retro style stuff, look into the Legend podium.
Yeah, that's
really neat. And I know I sent you a thing and you didn't have interest in it, but I know you like some football games and stuff, so that was
Yeah.
kind of why I sent it. And really, it's it's
Mine
got the
might take a second
like
look. Yeah.
Super Nintendo look, basically,
Yeah.
or maybe even regular Nintendo. I feel like it's maybe on par with 16-bit graphics,
Yeah.
but yet a lot of that's kind of different at the same time. Like the hits are really impactful, like the screen shakes and stuff like that. Like you
Yeah.
can get,
Little things. Yeah.
I think some pretty good injuries and things like that. But like it's really feature rich too. Like they do really crazy in depth, like franchise options and it's just a really cool thing, um, like feature rich package that they made, but like with a retro style skin,
Nice. Nice.
you
Well,
know.
I might give it a second look then.
And of as far as your players and all that stuff, and it does
Hmm.
like the whole fake names and fake players, and
Yeah.
it's very close to that stuff. But
That's kind of how Mutant League or Mutant Football League or whatever does. It's like they took like the player's name instead of Tom Brady. It was like something that was kind of horror based. It was like Tom Scaredy or or just whatever. So
yeah,
you know who they're trying to do. And I owned that game. I bought it when it came out because I didn't realize it at the time when I bought it. I'm like, well, shit. The commentator is done by the guy that did it was the Blitz guy. The Blitz
that's right.
commentator. Yeah, same guy. So I thought that was interesting. And but no, it's been good to talk about Madden. Let's leave the proverbial football field and go to a different kind of field. Let's talk about Starfield for a little bit, which you have played. I don't own the system to play it. And unfortunately, the exclusivity is to them, and kudos to them for that, by the way. I applaud their efforts. Um, there has been a lot of praise given to the game. There has been some generalized criticism and a few videos, not much, but a few that basically outright dogged on it. But I feel like that's par for the course for modern gaming. You've played it. I don't know how many hours you got into it. We were talking about this, folks, before we went live, and we talked about one of the things that John had mentioned, and we both agreed upon was Bethesda games like this, their RPGs, do have a particular formula that they follow. And good, bad, or indifferent, their games have been successful. I know that they took 3 years to fix Fallout 76, and playing it now is great. Playing it then wasn't. Um, you've got some time into this game. How do you feel about it, good, bad, or indifferent? Do you feel like it's everything they promised, or do you feel like it's mostly what was promised? Is there 1,000 planets, to visit?
Okay, so as far as what's promised, that I suppose so, because I don't know that they really ever promised anything.
Yeah.
Like it was so vague on what it actually was forever.
Yes, that's
And
true.
it wasn't until they kind of started showing videos you got an idea of what the game was actually like.
Yes.
So, really, I think, okay, so the short answer is I think it's a really good game, and I think if you like Bethesda games, Bethesda RPGs, you'll definitely like it. So,
Yes.
I haven't said that though, like it's very much a Bethesda RPG. Like it's very clear from the beginning. Like it's not so cookie cutter or anything. Like it's like I never really got like the I've been through this before, But
Yeah.
it feels very much that way. Like a lot of the mechanics are the same way. Like you can hit A to or X, I guess, whatever the action button is to put something in your inventory to pick it up, or you can press and hold it down and move it around the world just like Elder Scrolls or Fallout.
Gotcha.
Like stuff like that's there. Like there's familiar mechanics or familiar things about it.
Hmm.
Um, there are a ton of planets, um, varying degrees of populated and eventful. Like there's there's a lot of planets. There's a lot of walking around seeing nothing
Yeah.
if you go exploring. Like the planets are huge. They're not infinite, really. It's not. I don't think it's planet size, but they are. You can walk a long time on planets. I thought at first you could only land on planets like so the galaxy map, for instance. There's
Mm-hmm.
it it gives you the feeling of No Man's Sky briefly because you see like the solar system you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and you can zoom in on a planet and you can see its moons and stuff. You can zoom out back to the solar system, and then you can zoom out from there and see even more solar system out there, and you can scroll, and there's a large amount of them.
Mm-hmm.
When you get down to the planet level, whether it's a planet or moon, it typically shows like points of interest and like here's landing site, here's the city, here's this outpost or whatever.
Yes.
You can pick those and land there, and then go explore that area. But you can also, what I didn't know for a little bit was you could just pick a random place on the planet and land there. Now,
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
do that, you're probably going to get a big open planet and walk forever and not find anything.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you
Um,
can look at it one or two ways. You can look at it like I would look at it like this. Okay, if I was in a spaceship like in Star Citizen or not Star Citizen, Starfield, and I landed on the dune sea of Mars or whatever, I'm gonna walk for miles. There's going to be nothing. It's what you would
yeah,
expect, right? Because why would anybody colonize an area that has no value to it or intrinsic value? So, in one instance, you could applaud them for being like, well, yeah, that's how it would fucking be, right? If
yeah,
I land on the moon, it's just a lifeless rock. But at the same time, it's like, but then again, then when you get into video games, the expectation is, because Bethesda has that, both very good and also could be looked at as a small negative. Is like, well, Bethesda games like always, what's going to be around the bend? What's over that mountain range? What's over, and I could go there, and there would be something. But I'm like, yeah, but when you get into lifeless balls of rock, they're lifeless balls of rock. So it's like this is not like, and even Skyrim for all intents and purposes, it's like, yeah, that was 16 square kilometers. It's small by
yeah.
comparison by today's
And
games.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing really either.
Yeah,
It's just it is there,
yeah,
and and you also don't have to do hardly any of that, and you can just kind of fast travel and jump to all points of interest and not get caught up in that. So
yeah,
it is avoidable. It's a pretty optional part of the game, and I agree with you as far as I think it keeps it somewhat realistic. I mean, there's always the balance of realistic and fun, right?
yeah,
I'm not saying it's not fun. It's just is a thing that's there, and there is a level of procedural generation there
yes,
in some aspects. I'm not quite sure exactly where that balance is and what parts are and aren't. I
mm-hmm.
think there's things from what I've heard. It's kind of like here's like a building where there's settlers that need help or something. Here's a
Yeah,
building where something's going on. Here's a spaceship where there's something going on. And then like you kind of just those kind of get plopped around the worlds or whatever as you go. Like
yeah,
you know, um, so I think some people who's played a long time kind of starts to see a little bit of a pattern in some of those
mm-hmm.
things that pop up on planets that they're
Mm-hmm.
randomly exploring.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's there a little bit. Um, so that's one. That's kind of how the space is now. When you're in space, like ship-wise, it's somewhat open, like No Man's Sky, but it's kind of more like you have these pockets of space that you can go, like fly around in. Like 'cause, you can travel. Say, if you're in our the solar system, you can fly to Pluto if you want. It may take you forever
but you can go there.
fast travel, but you could technically go there, and it's still. There's not a lot to do really when you get there. I think somebody did it. There was some article about it, and it took them like so many hours, and I think they got there and like it something like it wasn't the same as if you loaded in, like it wasn't even working right or something, that you
Yeah.
could go there. So I think to some extent it's kind of real open space. But for the most part of if you're playing it, what it feels like is on average is you're going to use the menus to navigate to warp around, and then when you get to your planet's orbit where you're at, you're kind of in this pocket of space to where there's going to
Hmm.
be, a ship to battle, an event, or you just land on a planet or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so they kind of feel almost more like just contained spaces of
It sounds
space.
like me is
It's
almost like it's almost like instead of being what I refer to as true open worlds or open space, if you want to call it that, it's almost like a hub based kind of thing where it's like the worlds and the things you can do in that system are big and you can go wherever. But, and yes, you could spend time flying crazy amount of hours to wherever, but like those hub based open worlds are games like your Deus Exes of the world, where it's like, yeah, the map's big, but it's not infinitesimal, and so where in No Man's
yeah,
Sky, it's like I can
and
just fly and fly and fly and fly and fly and fly, and never hit anything, and it's like, but I think it's, I think, like I said, in a lot of ways, Bethesda's games, if I just go back to let's say Skyrim, yes, I can walk anywhere I want to go, but at some point, you open up so many spots, and I don't want to spend the
yeah,
time walking.
and that's the thing. It's not. I think there is a level of, you can fly across the stuff in real time, but like, who's going to really want to do that
Yeah,
for one, right? Other than trying to see if it can be done. Like, it's
yeah,
not in your. It's not a seamless surface to space thing. It's not a planet to planet thing so much. Like, it's best experience kind of just popping around, and it's like space is the backdrop, not
mm,
really what it's all about. You know what I mean? It's an element of it, and and it is there well enough to be a useful and engaging element that
mm,
brings some satisfaction and space role playing kind of thing. So I don't know if that makes sense so much, but now that it is a part of one of the biggest drawbacks to the game for me of just how menu driven some of that feels. Like,
yes,
now there is multiple ways to institute fast travel, your like warp drive, that kind of stuff.
mm,
Um, it's very easy to just pop in and out of the menus, and like it kind of gets confusing to me sometimes on where exactly I need to go. And
okay,
um, because it's not like you're on this one world and it's this direction or it's this part of the map. It's like you're in a universe. So
yeah,
like it'll say this is this planet and this system is where oh, you needed to go here, and like you can kind of pop in your map and look around till you find it, but sometimes it's like, well, where the fuck am I. Now you can go just to your very quickly to your objective or your mission that you've
mm,
unlocked
yeah,
and hit show on the map, and it will take you right there, and you can fast travel right there, so you don't even really need to like you know wonder where it is and stuff like
yes,
that. But
yes,
what that does though is it creates you just jumping from menu to menu,
I see.
and it feels like that's how everything's done, is menu to menu to menu to menu, uh, and I don't feel like the menus are done seamless enough. Like it feels counterintuitive.
Mm,
There's a lot of times, I mean, I'm a long time gamer here. I know like different control schemes, different menu schemes. Like it's definitely not my first rodeo, and for whatever reason, I find myself just hitting the wrong button all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's hard to keep track of, of where I'm jumping. Like, do
mm,
I go all the way out to this menu? Do I go to this thing? Like, what button takes me there? Like, I feel
yeah,
like they could have done a lot to optimize that, especially when you're
Yeah, the UI,
in
yeah.
practice going to use it. And it's a minor complaint. Like, it's not enough to be like, oh, fucking, I hate this. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh man, I hit the wrong button again. Like, oh, and then, next thing
Yeah.
I know, I'm in the menu jumping around, and it kind of feels like, it, in a certain sense, it can take you out of that. Uh, but again, there's multiple ways of doing stuff. There's multiple ways of fast travel. Like, I think you can somewhat aim to a planet and do it or something like that too. In some cases, and it does some really cool things. Like, so all that aside, when you're on a planet, it feels like any other Bethesda RPG at that point. Like,
Hmm.
Elder Scrolls or Fallout or whatever. You have your missions. You have all the factions, like the humor, it's basically a normal Bethesda game when you're on a surface. There's just
Yeah.
more planets and more surface, kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
The ship is a
Which is
cool thing, I think, because you have all the stuff I talked about, but at the same time your ship's always there, and it's kind of like your I don't know, it's like your hub or your main jumping off point. I don't know
mhm.
if that makes any sense. Like, you can sit down in the cockpit. You can even throw objects around your cockpit. Um, you can travel from that in the menus and stuff. You're in the but you can also like just get up and walk around your ship, whether you're in space or docked or not
Nice.
or landed. And the way they do some things are really cool. Like the space combat feels really cool. The ground combat with guns and weapons and stuff feels good. Um, you know, for instance, one of the encounters I had was I went to an orbit of a planet, and there was a ship I had to fight, right? But
Uh huh.
my mission wasn't to just blow it up; it was to disable the engines on it and board it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a small, like VATS-ish type of system
Yes.
that you got to kind of put a skill point to be able to use it. But when you use it, you can target specific parts of ships that you
Okay.
fight.
Okay.
Um, so in this case, I had to target the engines. I targeted the engines, disabled them. I tried hailing them, and they were like, "Ah, fuck you," whatever they, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but disabled their engines, and then I pulled up to them, and then I like docked with their dock, and it plays this little animation. And then from there, I stand up out of my cockpit. I can go around my little ship. It's not super large, at least the one I have right now. Um, talk to your crew, do whatever, mess with things, and then you can just go to the hatch and go onto that ship that you've just docked if you want.
Very cool. That's very
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's a neat mechanic.
I have
There's
a
stuff like
similar
that.
indie title that is called Galactic Junkers, and you can do that in that game. You can actually like take your ship and it's a very British type game, but it's very good. But you can do that. You can actually dock to another ship and board it and raid it and or explore it and then find things. Sometimes you got to fight stuff and then you get out, depending on your mission structure. But it's that game has some management stuff that you got to do with your crew and I had gotten it because it was a space game and I own the vast majority of all of them on the PS4/5. Which it's nice though that they did that because not a lot of games do that, right? Like if you see,
Yeah.
I mean, the games that do like ship to ship boarding are typically like, Assassin's Creed Black Flag or Rogue, or I have the game Under the Jolly Roger lets you do that, but there's very few games otherwise. That's I think that's neat.
Yeah, I mean the cool stuff with a lot of it, there's enough systems I feel in place that like you can ignore the faults and the menu stuff and like take the long way on things to really do some sci-fi spaceship role playing
Yeah.
for yourself. You know, like I know like there's smuggling you can do. I know like when you orbit colonized planets and stuff with an organized thing, you know, they'll scan your ship for contraband and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there's like space pirates. You know, you can join like kind of like kind of like space police kind of thing, and do
Yeah.
that stuff. There's factions you can join. You know, and on a regular RPG element stuff, it functions really a lot like any other Bethesda RPG, and there's tons of things like that to do. So, I think it's really really cool. I can't speak to like the longevity of it, you know, because it's such a big game to play. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those games you can play. I mean, you know how Bethesda games are anyway.
Yeah, you can just play them. For you, put 300 hours in easy.
Now, I've put quite a few hours into it, but I feel like I haven't gotten like too far.
Yeah. You know, because that's the thing with space games. Not having played that one, but playing like No Man's Sky, I put a lot of time into. I put a lot of time into Space Crew. I put a lot of time into, you know, Elite Dangerous, and which I really like to play. It's kind of my chill space game in a way. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw,
Yeah.
all those games. Recently, I got the new Everspace 2, which went from being a roguelike game, which is what the first one was more or less, to now a more or less space action RPG, you know, and it's so much better that they switched like the type of game genre, because now it's very ship focused and lots of customization and coloring your ship and all this stuff. I mean, you can even make a ship that like has a weapon that like brings ships you've killed back to life, and you're like a necromancer ship. It's insane. Like it's such a good game. But you know, like any space game, and gathering what you told me, it's another one of those. I've always viewed space games, even No Man's Sky, for as big and crazy as it is, and I can play it, you know, 5 hours and be like, did I really accomplish anything? Did I?
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time,
Well, and you know how Bethesda games are too. Like,
yeah.
you know, because they have their physics and everything in there, and like, you know, I would play them for, you know, 20 minutes, and like, I'm just trying to get a lamp to sit straight.
Yeah.
Table, you know,
Yeah,
like something stupid. It's not even a mission or nothing, you know.
Yeah, I think with the space genre in particular, I think your mileage out of the game, or any game in that particular genre, it may not necessarily just be that genre, but I feel, because I play them, is the mileage I get out of them is all about, you know, it's all about, you know, what I get out of it and what people can get out of it is what you kind of put into it. You know, You can either go into it with open arms and open eyes and be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do today in it. Because a lot of times with No Man's Sky, it's, for me, I kind of give myself personal objectives. What am I going to accomplish today? But then sometimes I do just want to go fly to a planet, land, and use my terraforming weapon and blow in. Oh, there's a cave. Cool. Let's go check that out. And it's like, so much of space games to me has to have some freedom to explore. Now, not all games do that. I mean, I love Rebel Galaxy, but you don't ever get out of your ship. You know, you're always in a ship. It's more about, you know, you can be a merchant or you can be a smuggler, you can be a pirate, and there are factions, but No Man's Sky, yeah. And even though it's fun, because Elite Dangerous is the same way, even though you can land on planets and get in your rover. Excuse me. I feel, though, for me, like being able to leave my ship at No Man's Sky and walk about, or go back to a base and use a Stargate, whatever, to tow over back to my main base and get in my rover, and that's the kind of thing that I like. I like to see where it's like I can be in my ship or I don't have to be. I can do either or. I'm not necessarily stuck, even though there are times I'm okay with that too. So I think, again, mileage of games is what you get out of it. I watched a lot of videos on Starfield because I don't own the system to play it. It is a shame that there's, in some ways, exclusivity, because I'd be like, I'm buying that as soon as it comes out, right? But I have a lot of games that are similar in retrospect. I have the Outer Worlds, I have No Man's Sky, I have those. So, but Bethesda games play a certain way and have a certain feel, and so I've always gravitated towards a lot of their stuff. I mean, I've put hours into the Elder Scrolls series. I put hours in the Fallout series. So Starfield, to me is like, it's taking what I would call a winning formula that works and has worked and putting it in a different environment that normally they don't use. We were talking about it before. It's either usually fantasy or post-apocalyptic. They don't go too far away from that. And I think it's good for them to do a different environment.
Yeah, and it's a solid game for sure. I mean, I haven't really encountered, crazy glitches or anything. I'm sure.
No, it's funny you say that because there's almost none, and I think the reason that is Microsoft owns them, and I'd almost put money. Microsoft's like, no, you can't release it like you did Fallout 76 when it was just you all. We're not going to have that, not in our system. I'd almost put money on it that they were very quality checking them much more than they did themselves when they were their own company. And the only reason I say that is because I've always felt Microsoft games in particular, ones that they publish or otherwise on their platform, I don't think I've ever really had that kind of an issue with any of that stuff. And I'd almost put
pretty solid games.
Yeah, I'd almost put money on it that they were quality checking that one. Like, because if Starfield, let's say, for example, released in the same kind of way that 76 did, that's Microsoft losing money, not just Bethesda losing money, right? So, yeah, and
maybe potentially, yeah. I think what I would think, either instead or in addition to, or a possibility, like, so Bethesda's always really done their releases of like when it's done, it's done.
yeah.
Now it gets a little harder the more expensive things get to make, and how the development cycles have evolved over time. And I think if anything, maybe they just have a bigger bankroll backing, by Microsoft, so like
True.
they can continue to take their time a little more and like not have to worry so much about the bills.
True. This is true.
And just focus on doing that potentially, but. Regardless, though, I think it's for a Bethesda game, I think it's pretty solid. I haven't encountered anything that's been detracting from the game, and there's been the joke before about like Bethesda, or some things count their glitches as features,
Yeah.
but like a lot of times though with Bethesda games over the years, like some of those really silly glitches and things, like they have been very entertaining and very fun to encounter.
Yeah.
So like I feel like if I do find something, like as long as it's not hindering to the experience or a regular thing that
Crash your game,
my experience, like it'd be, who cares anyway? Like it'd just be entertaining probably. But yeah, I think it's a solid game. I think. All the stuff I've said so far, it's a well done Bethesda RPG, kind of wrapped in the space blanket. And while the important thing, which I kind of always say about a lot of stuff, is it's important to know what it's not, and it's not No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
So if you get that out of the way, it's really kind of a cross between like Fallout, um, No Man's Sky, Mass Effect. There's elements of all that stuff in there, and um, I wouldn't say it's even a space first thing. I think it's a Bethesda RPG in the vein of Elder Scrolls or Fallout, with enough ship and space elements to make it feel like a space RPG. You know,
Gotcha.
um, and and it really there's enough stuff in there to like fulfill that fantasy of that.
Yeah.
The skill tree and stuff. There's a skill tree that's pretty cool. Like I said, that whole ship mechanic of being able to target different systems and stuff. It's a perk. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a skill tree perk. Um, the customization stuff is insane.
Yeah, I've seen a lot on that. Yeah. No, I have. That's crazy. Yeah.
The ship customization is nuts on there. You could do like outpost building and stuff, just like kind of No Man's Sky ish. There are things that remind me of it, mining of things and elements and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I don't know. There's so many systems.
Yeah.
And like both good and bad. It's like other Bethesda RPGs, so where there's things in there, and I don't really know how they work.
Yeah.
Yet.
I think it's interesting.
It doesn't hold your hand on everything. You just
Yeah. Well, the thing about too is Bethesda RPGs. I think some of the reason that I like them, I would venture to say a lot of people like them, is because in one instance, outside of the UI being kind of aberrant with the whole like menu system, but they've always had the ability to be like, okay, this is where I need to go. There's my compass. I go there. That's the story point. He wants me to go do this. Okay, go there. Story point. And you can kind of point A to point B, their games. But you can also be like, okay, I started the next part of the story, but I don't necessarily have to go do that right this minute. And let me go over here and go do this and join this faction and go see what they got. And then it's like, and I've always felt with their games, that's always been the thing with them. It's not unlimited freedom, but they give you the freedom to choose how and when you want to do things. Like you'll play the tutorial, you go through it, and then when they kind of let you off the leash, which usually isn't very long, you're not on tutorial island too long. It's kind of like, okay, I know I need to go do this, but I don't have to. And I'm not under any time constraint to do so. And I'm just going to go over here and check this out for a little bit. Oh, what's that? There's a cave? Okay, let's go in there. Let's check it out. So I feel like that their formula has always been, like even playing Fallout 76, it was like I left the vault, got through the tutorial, which is like, doesn't take very long. And I knew where I had to go, but I didn't do that right away. I went a completely different direction. Let me go check this out. And
yeah.
I think Bethesda it's never about you just have to follow the story. One of the things that I was recently playing The Outer Worlds, which is probably the closest to Starfield as far as, now there's no ship-to-ship stuff. The ship is just a loading screen. However, and you can walk around it too, but you're never like flying it. And you can go to different planets on that board. It's not like vast, but I was playing it and I kept thinking, its structure is very similar with because it's Obsidian. They made New Vegas. They're familiar with that formula. They had the same basic formula. And it's like, but playing it, I kept saying, it was like this, it's like, unlike Bethesda games, while there was story bits, and I could go do whatever else, there wasn't like much incentive for me to do so because the story was interesting, and the other stuff is even just the side stuff was nowhere near as interesting. So even though Obsidian tries to kind of mock or take that same formula, Bethesda does it better, and I think that's one of the things that I always liked about even Skyrim. You know, you get to the beginning and there's Hater and he's like, meet me in Riverwood, but you really don't have to. You know, you don't necessarily have to go right then and there, right? You may not be able to progress the story, but you can go to the Three Stones, pick Warrior, Thief, or Mage, and instead of going from the stones, which you would go right, you can just say, fuck it, I want to go left, you know? And so that's the thing about their games. Like, they say, hey, now that the leash is off, go do whatever. Go to the story or don't. You know, we're not going to penalize you for it. So it's kind of nice.
Now there were some of those games of theirs, you know, and it was like I'd play for months and months and months and never do the story.
Yeah.
Story, you know.
Yeah, no, it's now,
I will say though, if you play Starfield, I feel like it's kind of best if you do start off playing the main thing for some reasons.
Yeah.
You know, really because of how hush they've been about all that. I don't even really want to say why, but you know, when you go down a certain path in this main story, things start happening, and it brings with it some incentive and cool things, like kind of to you know, use in the game or to, you know, like new mechanics, I guess.
Yeah.
There's benefit to going through the main stuff of what I've seen so far. Now, having said that, though, some of those things I kind of don't really know, like what good it does me. Some of that stuff, it's kind of hard to say, but I don't know. I don't know if it makes any sense, but I don't know. I'm still kind of feeling that out long term.
Yeah.
You know, on how beneficial some of that stuff is. But it's cool, and there's neat new things, and you kind of understand why you're in this world, and things kind of start happening that you can, you know, benefit from. So it's cool. I mean, you know, and all of the other stuff is there that you like from those games. It's a really solid game. You know, it sucks that it is exclusive for people that don't have that system to play. At the same time, though, like, you know, I gotta hand it to Microsoft. Like, you know, you gotta have some things like that. You know.
Yeah.
You gotta have some system sellers sometime.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise, why are you in the business? You know.
Well, that's true. I mean, I know there was some exclusivity with No Man's Sky at first, because Sony pretty much kind of more or less ponied up a lot of money to Hello Games, and then, but they didn't ask for like, oh, it's going to be a year, because it was like a year, and then another year passed. It came on Switch, you know, so they just waited for that long-term effects, and there were some comparisons between the two, and all this really crazy and really wild shit you can do in No Man's Sky now, but what people forget, Starfield's months old, and No Man's Sky has been around for 5-6 years. That's free updates and constantly adding stuff to it. So if Starfield has any legs like that, the potential for that game is the same as No Man's Sky. So, you know, what's Starfield going to be like 2 years from now, 3 years from now? You know, even if they only support it for 2 years of content and they're not charging much or whatever they decide to do, it's still going to be maybe not a different game, but a better game. And No Man's Sky has benefited from time. And some of the stuff that you can do in No Man's Sky now, from these really neat like multiplayer missions that you play solo from the hub, or you go to some world and you find out you're flying in on the planet in your ship and you're having to fight some giant, like, I mean, ginormous, like 100-foot long, 50-foot tall centipede looking thing that's trying to devour the planet, and just crazy weird stuff like that happens in the game, but people were like, well, in No Man's Sky you can do this, and in Starfield you can. I'm like, yeah, but I looked at some videos that people were saying that, and I was like, yeah, but No Man's Sky's had like 6 years, you know.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
might
it's
be
just a different
longer.
game.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, I don't like the comparisons because I'm like, the only thing it has in common is your space and planets, and you can fly around. It's like, but they're very different games. And I still never have understood comparisons in video games in general. You know, if people compare Call of Duty and Battlefield, I'm like, okay, they're both military shooters. They might have similar guns. That's really all they have in common. But why they play very differently and feel very differently. They're getting closer. Yeah, I know it's weird. You got playing COD. I played Modern Warfare. I played Call of Duty 2, Modern Warfare 2. Two's in the title twice. It's a little redundant, but I was playing it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. This map is huge, and there's A, B, C, D, E, F like flags, and there's vehicles. Is this Battlefield? And it's like, and then Battlefield's like, oh, and I got this team deathmatch. What? You know, it's like they're like interchangeable now. But no, I think it's good that the game, that Starfield has what I have seen thus far. There hasn't been a ton of negativity. There's been a few.
One thing about the quality, I think the quality probably helps too because it's exclusive. Because they only had to worry about development on one system.
That's true. That's very true. Because it'd been like if we had to do multiple systems, we do PC, but PC, that's where they build it at anyway. So, but that's probably did help with that. You're probably right on that. But I'm happy that you give it good remarks because, like I said, any negative press I have seen on it, again, it all goes back to, what we even going back referencing Madden. It's like, it's a Bethesda RPG. What are you expecting? If they had a completely different formula and it was very, very different, it would be a problem.
It's nothing like Skyrim.
Yeah, it's nothing like Skyrim that we've released 20 times. It's like it's like you've said it before on a couple other table talks, which is there's always that percentage of people that, like, no matter what they do, it's like, fuck them, right? Yeah, it's like they're never going to be happy. Like why do you even play video games at this point? Because you hate them.
I do wonder the long-term plan. So I know there is going to be a piece of DLC, but that's included in like the premium edition or whatever.
Yeah.
So I know that's there, and I don't really know what it is exactly. They haven't talked about it. I don't think it's going to see continuous updates like No Man's Sky. I mean, I'm pretty sure they'll support it for a while. At some point, though, they will move on to their next RPG to where
Elder Scrolls 6.
What Hello Games is doing.
Yeah.
Like
Hello Games.
I know they're gonna do Elder Scrolls 6. I know they're doing like an Indiana Jones game.
Yeah.
Who knows what else they're gonna be working on? I feel like maybe there's something else. But Hello Games, I think, just being funded by who knows, PlayStation, I guess, Sony.
Yeah, in the beginning they were. I don't know about
now.
No, I don't think
multiple platforms.
No, right? I don't think it is. I think Sony originally when the game came out and it was exclusive, but it wasn't like exclusive forever. It was like, we'll help pony up the money to be made. It wasn't like when people were really mad about Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Switch, and people were like, why is it not coming on anything else? Because Nintendo was like, well, we fucking made it. Like, we ponied up all the money ourselves for it to be made. That's why it's not on anything else. It's like, and I own that game.
I do wonder how No Man's Sky really, like Hello Games, like how do they even make money now? Like, I know it sold a shit ton of copies, right? But there's not really microtransactions.
There are none. There's zero. Every update's free.
And then, I realize at some point maybe there could be a sequel, but, why at the same time? You
Well,
know,
they,
like
yeah,
where are you going to go from here that you're not doing already?
yeah.
You already got an infinite universe you're just building on. Like, so how do you, like, where are they getting the money from? Is
I
my
don't know.
question.
And even though they started out with like 9 people, and now they're like 300 people, and I know Sony helped publish and help that game become a thing. And if nothing is for sale, which nothing is, there are no microtransactions, and if people are still just generally buying the game, like I know it would have new life on the Switch. Crossplay is available on all platforms, including PC. And if people are just generally discovering it and buying it all the time, I mean, that's it. That's where they would be making money. But I don't know where else
Yeah, I
they
mean,
make
that's
it.
not, it's going to be enough.
No, so I don't know because that game, out of all my games I own that I have installed and otherwise, when it comes to updates, that fucking game updates constantly. And it's either small updates, sometimes 2 or 3 a week. I've seen it do 3 times in 1 week recently. To like the latest one, which was a big patch, which was like, oh, we're adding Sentinel worlds and we're adding a jetpack with wings, so now you can fucking fly, and then we're gonna add like these new. You can now play as They added a new species to play as. Like you can literally play as a new I think you can play like a robot, like a sentinel, like that's sentient, and that's new. And these new sentinel worlds are like these machine worlds, and you're like, well, that's weird. And now they added, in the game you had like, you had your rovers, you had your 3 different rovers. Well, now you have a submarine. Now you have a mech you can get inside to. You got a walking thing. So it's like, that game is insane. Even from a solo point of view, even
Like
though
from
it's
a
very
sales perspective, like I mean, you can only sell the same thing so many times, right?
true,
Across
true,
platforms, and
true.
like potential for repeat sales, like because I've thought before about getting it on like the Steam Deck and stuff, even though I already have it on PlayStation and
Yeah.
things like that. But you're not really getting any DLC money from me because you're not charging for anything.
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
everything's
there's
free.
only so many consoles. There's only so many players. There's only so many people that are interested in it. And if you're
Yeah,
interested in it, you probably already own it. So like,
yeah.
I realize you made a ton of money off of that, but it really makes me wonder what the next move is. I
I don't know.
guess
Yeah,
I don't
that's a
know.
good
Like, you're just
question.
gonna support it forever.
Yeah,
And
and
surely
yeah,
you're gonna make something else. But
yeah. At some point, I mean, the ones they didn't make much before then, because before that they made those Xbox Live arcade games, Joe Danger or whatever it was, and like 2 of those. They barely made anything before No Man's Sky, which was their auspicious thing. And I did lots of videos on No Man's Sky. There's still videos of mine, vanilla No Man's Sky, which is a very different game now. But I look at like, I don't know. But I think on the Bethesda end, I think it's good that they made Starfield. But I would agree with you, not having played it, but seen enough videos to know that's the atypical Bethesda RPG and the way that it plays, and they play with that formula. You can go Morrowind to Elder Scrolls, even Elder Scrolls Online. It's like that formula is still there, and
yeah,
I think it's a winning formula. It works, so why change it now? Yeah, you can complain that they use this creation engine that's like 23, 25 years old, that's been modified and modified and modified.
and I thought they were using Unreal this time, but I was wrong on that. It's it and it
Mm-hmm.
is this is like a Creation 2 engine or something. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of the same backbone, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's their new version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think though,
whatever that means really.
given your expertise in video games and playing their games, I've played them. Even looking at it, it would be something that I would be like, I would know what to expect from it because I know what I'm getting with that, but I also know it's a different environment, and it's different in the sense that I'm flying around, I'm landing on a planet, different areas, I'm doing various missions. It's again, the mileage you get out of a game like that, especially space games, like because I play so many of them, is all a matter of how what you put into it is what you get out of it. And if you're going into any game, Starfield or otherwise, in that genre, if you're going into it, you kind of have to I've always keep it in mind, like, I can sit there and play Elite Dangerous for a couple hours. I do not play it for like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, because Elite's one of those games. It's like I finally reached like, a million credits, and I'm finally getting into stuff that I didn't normally do. I was just flying back and forth, taking small little jobs, because it is like the Dark Souls still, even though they have changed it to make it so much easier to play on the console. I mean, you can just auto dock and do this and do that, and you don't have to do so much of the menu stuff anymore in that game. And I do love it because they did make it so much easier and better to play. But it's not a game that I can play. I generally, like, I refer to it as like, I love it, but I play it in small doses. Royal Galaxy is a lot different, and I can play that for a long period of time, because that game reminds me so much of like old, like, Wing Commander in games that I used to love playing. And so I think what I've seen on Starfield and the videos I've watched, it is nice to see them, though. I applaud them for keeping the formula and changing the box that you're playing it in to something they don't normally ever do. And I applaud them for releasing the game and taking the time, whether it was Microsoft quality checking them, or them saying, hey, we don't have to put it on everything. Either way, to release the game in a state that is with virtually no bugs. And that's nice of them. So I give old Todd Howard and them, like, some respect for that, because, like I said, they kind of lost their shirt on Fallout 76, and they paid the price for that. And Bethesda had some. You didn't hear a lot about it, but there were some layoffs because of that game. Not like the whole damn company, but like a few. And there was, because they had to save money, because people were like, it was our number one selling game, and then it just tanked, because of the problems it had. And then quietly 3 years later, it becomes the game that I like to play now. But I feel like with Starfield, it's nice that, listening to you and talk about it and the things that you like about it, it's, again, going back to the beginning of the video with Madden, it's like expecting it to be like the complete opposite of everything Bethesda do, because you're expecting a No Man's Sky experience. You're not going to get that. You're going to get a Bethesda experience, which should be good enough for you.
And it is kind of tricky, because it went so long without telling you what it was,
Yeah.
And so nobody knew what to expect. And I think that's the thing, like I said, it's important to know what it's not. It's not No Man's Sky. It's not Mass Effect,
Yeah.
It's kind of its own thing, and that own thing is just a melting pot of all those other games. At the core, though, it is a Bethesda RPG, and it's not this groundbreaking, revolutionary experience. It's not that.
Yeah.
But if you like those games and you like what they offer, and you want that type of thing in a space environment, it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a good experience. And all the important parts feel good. Like, the combat feels good. The questing is top notch. Storyline stuff's good. It's, there's shortcomings in a lot of things. Like, the NPCs can be very robotic, like how they are in all the Bethesda RPGs and stuff.
True.
I mean, at a certain point, it's a game, and it can't do everything, and it's not going to be the end all thing. But if you want a cool space RPG thing, it's a great one. for it.
That's good. That's good to hear.
But you're exactly right, though. You'll at the same time you know exactly what you're in for. Like if you played those games, you're in it. Like there's not much surprise there other than seeing how it tackles some mechanics.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very indicative of games in general anymore. It's like there's so many of them out there that you can play. Like if I play, oh, it's a new Souls-like game. Well, I know exactly what I'm getting into. It's like, my expectation for games anymore is I don't really have one because I've played so many of them and I played different genres. If someone says, oh, this game's coming out and it's a lot like Monster Hunter. Okay, well then I know exactly what to expect. I don't try to think I'm getting anything really different. It's kind of like, they're basically anymore is they're taking things they've made everything. Let's just throw that out there. So the idea is we can't change it, but we can repackage it differently, right? So to make it feel different. I mean, I was talking about in my video about MechWarrior 5, and I know there was MechWarrior 4, 3, 2, and 1, mercenaries, but I said it's interesting because even though it is MechWarrior 5 and it's on PS5 and Xbox or whatever, and it's modern with these great graphics and all this stuff, a lot of the formula is not much different from that old Super Nintendo game where I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick a contract. I'm going to fly here in my ship. There's a cutscene. I can walk around my ship. I pick, what I'm doing. These are the mechs I'm using in my group because you have 3 AI people with you. Or you can play with your buddies, co-op. And I'm killing the mechs or destroying a base or I'm doing various objectives. Go to the extraction point, get the money and everything I need, repair my mechs, wash, rinse, and repeat, right? There are news stories going on in it, just like the original Super NES had news. This is happening on this planet or this system, and because the map's really, really big. But not much outside of the UI and graphics interface and the loadouts and different things you can do with the mechs and color them, and the customizations are really top notch. It's kind of like, okay, I haven't played a MechWarrior game in a long time. It's basically what I remember. I love it. Yeah. I love it because I can play it indefinitely. But again, it's taking something that's been done and repackaging it to make it either, what you're getting, but there's the space element and the ship elements in Starfield and the land on this planet, and I go here and I go to this other planet. That's new, but it's still taking the formula and just repackaging it new, putting a new nice little something else with it. And so it's gonna, if the formula works, why change it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But them being able to put it in a different environment and them being able to do something a little different with it and seeing how that works was probably the big reason to play it. It's like, okay, I played it in the fantasy world, it works great. Post-apocalyptic, let's see how it works in space. And so I think that's cool,
And then Americans probably, seemingly just kind of living out of fantasy anyway for them, right? Like, okay, we know how to do these things. Let's put that in space. We want to make what something that we want to play, basically.
Yeah. And I think that's how game companies, out there keeping things fresh. Let's talk about a couple of things too. Here, real quick. Man, dude, I can't believe it, and it's such a shame to hear, but Volition going out of business is like, wow, that they've made incredible games, and I have the new Saints Row, and I get it failed, I get it bombed, I get that it didn't sell well, people were unhappy with the direction of the game, I know the marketing for the game was very heavily emphasized. Like, oh, the leader of the Saints is half black, half Hispanic, short-haired woman. It's a very woke game, which is, all that's all in the news and political and everything that deals with that saying woke. And even though that was never the case, you start the game, you do exactly what you do in 4, just like you do in 3. You make your own boss. It can be a white Anglo-Saxon male. It could be a green Hulk-looking guy. You could make the boss. It wasn't marketed that way, but that's exactly how it is. And playing through the game, especially after the last update, it's more closer, if not pretty much, it's like you're playing 3 again, with newer graphics and newer things to do. And yes, they borrowed elements from Just Cause and Sleeping Dogs and a lot of other open world games. But I hate to hear the Volition. I know it came out and it was terribly buggy on the PC, like off, and even on consoles, it was patched and fixed like most games. But it is a shame because Volition has been around a long time. I've played a vast majority of everything they put out. I've been a long time Saints Row fan. I absolutely loved Agents of Mayhem. The video I did on it a couple years back was all about how people just were like, whoa, it's got the Saints purple, but it's not the Saints, and it's just trying to do this. And it's like, it's basically a hero shooter that's not online, with the characters. And it was like playing a Saturday morning cartoon. But what I had said then, and I say now, it's a direct sequel to Get Out of Hell. Gat beats Satan's deal and gets his wish and brings everything back. Satan, being Satan's like, okay, you got the wish. Well, I'll bring the earth back. I'll bring the people back you love, but I'm going to screw you in the end. And Johnny Gat's in the game, and he's a cop. He's not a gang member, and the game takes place in South Korea. That's where Johnny's from. Kenzie's in it. Pierce is in it, but they're very different. They're similar, but different. And there's a lot of references to Saints Row the 4 and things that go on in that game that's very much like, oh, okay, this took place after, but the game didn't sell either. So that game sold and then tanked, and now the new Saints gets rebooted and tanks, and it was enough to kill the company. And I hate that, because there's some talented people over there.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem, and the very dangerous and irresponsible thing about trashing games, right?
Yeah.
And like YouTube and content creators and the bandwagons they jump on and make these trash videos, and then it results in a lot of stuff, and like, and we see, I mean, how many years have you known of IGN and their sketchy reviews, right?
Oh yeah, a long time.
Making no sense, right? And still, almost any game, you'll go on there, something with it gets like a 6 or something, and you look at the comments, and everybody's like, yeah, see, I knew it was trash.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, this is one article of somebody saying something they didn't like, and, talk about it being average, and you're just jumping on, So, like, and the problem with that is it paints developers in a box, you can almost just make one bad game is all it takes sometimes before you go out of business now.
Yeah.
Because budgets are so large, it's a big thing instead of trying to judge it for yourself or find, what a game has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping on the bandwagon and trashing it, not, whatever. Like, and it's one thing, like, if you find people with similar views and similar outlooks on things and trust their opinion, on something, that's a little different. But, when you see article after article or video after video trashing something, and like, this is what happens. right?
Yeah.
It stifles creativity. Um, it creates less studios that will work on stuff, and you're just going to end up getting more of the same handful of developers making the same thing over and over because whenever someone tries something different, it gets, it's such a huge risk
No, that's true.
and gets, and if it doesn't hit just the right way, then, something like this happens.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's really all about the background from they had they were makers. I call the alternate GTA. You know, you got me into the series. As a matter of fact, with the first game, and I loved the second game. I played through the third game. I played through the fourth. I'm played a ton of Agents of Mayhem. Excuse me, I had to blow my nose and stuffed up. It's crazy with these allergies. But and I got the new Saints Row when it went on sale. And then, of course, they give it away free this month. So I'm like, hey, everybody got a $70 game for free. And playing through it. And yes, they did borrow, like I said earlier, a minute ago, elements from like Just Cause 4, elements from a variety of different open world games. And yes, tonally, the new Saints that they introduce are pretty awful. The dialogue is awful between them two, and some of the reasons why they formed a gang in the first place, because your toaster broke and you need a new toaster. Just go buy a fucking toaster. Like, what? You got to take on the whole world. Okay, anyway. So some of the characters were just not, to me, unlike Gat, Kinsey, and Pierce and the Saints, that were memorable and interesting. And the Saints games had the right amount of comedy / serious tone to them, especially Saints Row 2. The characters in the new Saints Row they're kind of insufferable douchebags. I didn't like interacting with them. I didn't feel anything for them, and I really didn't care. Even the boss character, who's well voiced and everything, it's again, now the open world stuff and the various side stuff you can do in a game is a lot of fun. And it is fun to drive around, as always, and jump on top of your car and then jump off and use your wingsuit and do various things in the open world. That's a lot of fun, and it is improved upon in a lot of ways, the way that they do the wanted system and stuff from the previous games. But you're right. Content creators and influencers and people that just kind of are like, meh, are down on it, some of which I don't even know if they actually really played it to its conclusion or at least played it enough. I'm halfway through it. It's like...
And I'm not saying it's a great game. I didn't care for it. I mean, it like all the stuff you said, and it's to me, it's a very generic, basic, open world.
Oh, it is. No, I agree with
you. It's missing so much from any kind of open world GTA type of standpoint. Like, it's nowhere close to even on GTA.
No, I agree.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
That's the big problem. At the same time, though, it is a fun kind of little thing. It's a distraction. Like, it would have been good if it just came out like cheaper, maybe, and like no expectations.
Yeah,
of what it is.
I just think it's a shame that it took like a large update to kind of bring it up to Saints Row 3's level, because that's where I keep going back to. But 3 came out a long time ago, and so it's like other games have come and gone that have done better. And I do have fun with the game. I do. And some of the story missions are pretty crazy and over the top. And those are actually the best.
You can make literally any game with an open world and cars and guns.
Yeah, this is true.
Probably equally as fun.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. So I'm not saying that Saints Row is a great game. I feel like it is a average to good game. I am finding enjoyment in it, but I think a lot of that is because I've always liked the series, and I think if that's the kind of game that I like, then, and I've always enjoyed that game series from day one when I first played the first one, when you showed it to me all those years ago, and playing through the second one, playing the third one, playing the fourth one, buying them when they come out. I like it, but I also agree with you. It is like your aggressively mediocre open world because of that. I just hate that Volition, being a game company that's had a lot of success, they didn't really try to change the formula. They tried very hard to keep it looking like Saints Row. They tried really hard with the dialogue to make it seem crass and or funny, and it just kind of fell flat. And like I said, Gat and all of them were memorable, and yeah, exactly. But I know,
because,
yeah.
The first, you couldn't, you probably can't even do as much in it as you could the first Saints Row, really.
Yeah, there are stuff to do in it for sure, but again, it's another one of those games that, I feel bad that Volition went out of business. It is a shame that they were trying to reboot a series, but I think they did get bogged down into too much of like, well, we better make sure we don't piss anybody off, and we better have these. We got to have the gay character, and we've got to have this character, and we got to have that character, and we got to have this character, and we got to make sure that we appeal to every single person because we're afraid to piss somebody off. And that's part of the problem with some of that with games. But I also know that I hate to hear that Volition went out under, just because I still feel like, nevertheless, there's some talented people over there. And I know those guys, they'll end up working for whatever company. Like, they'll go on their separate ways and work for whoever and get there, right? But it's at the same time, it's kind of like one of those things, because with modern gaming, it's like you said, if a game doesn't sell, a lot of times anymore, that breaks a company. And to see a lot of these companies going to the wayside, like, I feel like after like the debacle of Redfall, like, to see Arcane is in kind of trouble with that, even though they're under Microsoft Studios. It's like Arcane really fucked up with Redfall, like, very badly. And everyone keeps saying, these are the people who made Dishonored, and these are the people who made this game, and those were really good. What happened? I'm like, you know what? What people don't realize, that, yeah, it was Arcane Studios, but only 5 people who worked on Redfall worked on the Dishonored series. So, no, it isn't Arcane Studios. It's the new Arcane Studios. It's not the old Arcane. You know what I mean? So, but yet, that's what happens, though. Like you said, look at Crystal Dynamics. They've been around for how many years? Marvel's Avengers comes out. They try to make it a live service. They try to put $100,000 worth of skins in it. Give everybody a battle pass. All these microtransactions, they're gone because they fucked that up royally. And even though Avengers Now is awesome, because all that's gone now. But anymore, I just think the last couple of years, how many companies are just going under because either they tonally misread or how the game should be, what people wanted, or they just flat out fucked themselves by making a game that was just like, nah, like you didn't, like with the new Saints game.
It's part of the problem with something like that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. My nose is still stuffed up.
There's a mute button.
Yeah, no, I don't know how to use it.
You hit it. And it means
I think I got to switch. If I have to do that again, there's my switch.
It's
Sorry.
On the controller, isn't it?
Yes, it's on my headphone. My headphone's got a mute. So, but no, you're right. You're right.
You can't expect every game to be a $1 billion blockbuster. Every single title.
No.
it doesn't make those that are that way as good
Yeah.
for one, and two, just you can't have zillion-dollar budgets and then you miss one. That's like your company under.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like that, given recent events with some of these companies going under after one misstep, I mean, do you feel like that companies are putting all their eggs on one game, and they're basically saying we have to make sure this game, this the next big franchise or the next big, live service, the next big thing, but that's not what's happening. And do you think companies are just at that point? Do you think it's more of a company has a direction, but then the publisher who ponied up the money is like, nope, you're doing this instead? Do you feel like companies are spending too much time on that smoking the hopium and thinking this is the next big game for us? And I mean, even Blizzard is having player count losses and less sales like Diablo 4. And Diablo has always been a big seller and has continued to do so, but 4 has got these weird microtransactions and these oddball things going on with it that people are pissed about. Their player count is at an all-time low for that series.
And that's a whole other thing. But like, so I played Diablo 4 too. And yeah, it has microtransactions, yeah. But they are completely optional. Like, at least most, like any game now, for one, any game has microtransactions almost. So
pretty much.
It's almost not even a thing to really count as a negative anymore because it's just part of the game,
It's modern gaming, yeah.
How we make games now. Rarely is there not any of those. Those are the exceptions. So, yeah, they're there. But you don't need them, though. It is just purely cosmetic stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you feel about the seasonal stuff that's under fire with them? Just real quick.
Well, they've always had seasonal.
No, but the seasonal thing where you
start your character over. That's always been the case. You've had to have a separate character when you do the seasons.
My understanding is that in Diablo 3, if you made a seasonal character, when the season started, you didn't have your level reset to 1. You didn't lose anything. And 4, you get your level reset to 1 and you lose everything. You're back to square one. That's my understanding.
That's always been. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. That was always the thing. Like you do that's for one why it's seasonal. Like I think you can convert your character to a seasonal character in 3.
Yeah.
But then like after that season's up, then it is reset.
Well, see, that's weird. But then why? Then I would ask, if no one had a problem with that in 3, why does everybody have a problem with that in 4? Right?
I think it's a new audience that's playing the games, and that's the loud,
I see.
I mean, how long has Diablo 3 been out, right?
Forever. Since 2012? Maybe 2011, 12? Something like that.
This is the new one, and you have a new audience playing, right?
Gotcha.
So it only makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong somewhat on Diablo 3, but that's what I thought I heard, because I've heard people jump to the defense of, well, that's how it's always been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think, so, part of that, we're kind of getting off on a lot of tangents now, but, part of that, I think, is the obsession of how I hate playing games, and I hate that people play it, but it's, the completist aspect of games, right? Playing the game to complete it, not to play the game. So I feel like it drives people nuts that you can't play the seasonal stuff and like max out your character, because and it's always resetting.
Yeah. So well, back to
complete it.
Well, going off on that tangent, back to my question though, do you feel that there are developers out there that put all their eggs in one basket instead of trying to give us like 2 or 3 games that are good? They're just going like, this one game, man, this is what we got to, it's got to be this or nothing. I mean, do you feel like
I
That's what's
think,
happening?
I think unless you're an indie developer, I don't think you have a choice,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think companies like Volition and stuff, I think you're expected to have at least a certain grade of game. Like, if
Hmm.
they all of a sudden start putting out, some indie titles, people will be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, and and maybe they'll be fine. But I think, like in order to kind of compete with something like to have a main release game, a big money game, you gotta go crazy or you're gonna be laughed out of there. Like,
Like, go big, go home, man.
well, yeah, I mean, like everything uses Unreal almost or Unity or whatever, but like
Uh,
most of the big titles are Unreal, and that's pretty scalable on how you want to do it. And we're like 5 iterations in, and people kind of have those tools down, but you know, we're on these 4K systems and things like that now, and like the development of assets for games or so it requires such a big team to
true.
make some of this stuff
This
now.
is true.
So the expectations are part of it. You can't like used to if you made a 10 or 12 hour game, there was a good length and people gave you props and they liked it or didn't like it, or you got your kind of fair shake.
Yeah.
Now if you're not making a 50 to 100 to 300 hour game, you know how's that received, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like it's the the people who are trying to like pressure these studios into doing this, like it's causing that like butterfly effect, like
Hmm.
they're creating their own fear, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, because even the studio who, there was Volition went under, the studio made Gollum went under, Crystal Dynamics went
seen
under.
that coming because that was gonna
Yeah,
be a
yeah, that
terrible
was
game.
pretty awful. But the point is it's like this is probably in the last
You
few
can't just make a bad
years.
game anymore,
Yeah, no, you can't.
and survive.
Exactly, and yeah, you can't. And it's interesting that the dynamic now is that way because in the last, I'd say, the last 3 4 years, we've seen more game developers that had been around for many years go under than we've ever seen before, and only
Yeah.
because like a game company could put out 10 games a year and two or three would be top notch, three or four would be mediocre, and the rest were bad. But that was okay because the volume made up on the good versus the bad. But now, like you said, it's because of the life cycle of games and the fact that the competition is there. Everybody wants you to play their game and only their game. They don't want you to play 20, even though that's a stupid expectation, which is the theme of this episode, by the way. It's any developer's like, well, we want you to play this and nothing else. It's like, well, that's silly because we're gamers, we're going to play lots of different stuff. But I'll play the shit out of your game if it's compelling and it's got a good amount of,
Well,
but it's like at the same time,
you know, nobody wants a mediocre game, and nobody
no,
wants to make a mediocre game, right?
no,
And
I
and
wouldn't.
and I don't mean mediocre in a bad way either. I just mean like a mid-level game. Like,
Yeah.
remember Time Splitters when it came out, right?
Yes. Uh huh.
It was definitely a sleeper hit. Like, it was not a big, super heavily advertised thing, not like the
No.
biggest budget thing. It really fell under the radar, but one of the best games ever.
Yeah, it was people who.
And it just like they were content with doing that game and a couple sequels. It wasn't trying to be the next big blockbuster, you know, revolutionary experience, and people didn't expect it to be, and that was successful. Now,
Yeah.
you know, if you're making a shooter, it better be like Call of Duty or as good or something.
Yeah, and the problem
To
is
tell the
too,
day.
it's hard. It's hard for a company. Yeah, no kidding. It's what's bad about that is you think about COD's influence. You think about Battlefield. COD mostly, I think, is king on that. But it's more like this. if I make a game and it's a lot like COD, they shit on it because, well, you just copied COD. And if I make a game that's a shooter that's very different from COD, it's like, well, why the fuck it ain't like COD? Why didn't you just, it's like you can't win. Yeah. And first-person games, now, if it's a first-person game that's like a linear story-based, like a Wolfenstein or something like that, nobody cares. But as soon as multiplayer is involved, forget it, and there's companies out there that, like I said, it's the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of companies just go under, and it's a shame to see that. But it's, like you said, there's so much now of this is our game, and this is what we're banking on, And the thing is they used to be like, we're going to make a game, like you said, 10, 12 hours, but we're going to make 12 or 15 games a year. Games now are like, well, we're going to make a game. That's what we're making. This is the budget. We got a lot of money. Yeah, we want people to play it for the next few years. We'll make money off of it, even if it's not technically a live service game. But that's what we want. We're not a company. We don't have the time or the resources or the manpower to make 15 games a year, right? This ain't like LGN back in the day putting out 20 games a year because they were easier to make. So there is a lot of emphasis on, I'm sure there is probably pressure to perform, Now, if you're a big company like EA, Anthem didn't do well. And weirdly enough, Anthem is about ready to get picked up by a completely different company and relaunched, which is weird, right? EA's no longer going to be under it. But here's the thing. EA can afford to have a couple stinkers only because they make, $1 billion off Madden every year. So they don't have a money problem. But it's other companies that do. And I feel like that is, yeah.
And there's some of that's kind of unavoidable and not malicious, like because just how we were talking about Madden or with Call of Duty, in my opinion, and I realize it's subjective and whatever, but I think as far as Twitch, like multiplayer shooting experiences, no other game does it like Call of Duty. I feel it's the top experience, to be honest. Like, you can have all the complaints you want about microtransactions, the war zone. It has issues, yeah. But as far as the gameplay, it's as solid as it's ever been. I don't think there's a game that's as tight as it. And that's just my opinion, like right or wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, release a multiplayer shooter. You can do all kinds of stuff. If it doesn't feel as good as Call of Duty, like, for me and the time I have and stuff, like, I would just probably rather play Call of Duty.
Right? Gotcha. Yeah.
Or like, Madden, your Axis Football or whatever, right? Like, I haven't played it, so I don't know, but like, I can totally understand if I'm going to play football, I'm just going to play Madden, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, though, and I think that's fine. Like, it's you vote with your money. It's your time. Like, that's perfectly reasonable approach to things, the thought process. Not everybody has that, but I think it's reasonable. What sucks, though, is when you take that and you put it on these platforms and influence others' decisions based on that.
Yeah.
And you're bashing games. Like, it's one thing to just say this is very, like, for me, I feel perfectly okay about saying I'd probably rather play Call of Duty than any other multiplayer shooter out there. But at the same time, though, there's plenty of low budget multiplayer shooters that other people enjoy, and I'm sure they're great and perfectly fine for them. Like, I don't give a shit. Don't play. Play with.
Yeah, play whatever. Exactly. It's funny because it's a good
I don't
statement.
Try to create movements.
Yeah, but you're right, and it makes you go like this. So okay, so these, like, go back to Crystal Dynamics, like the Avengers. The campaign was stellar. It was great. It was all the other stuff that the publisher wanted. That was kind of like meh, and the mediocre loot system that's vastly improved now, and since the last Forever update, that's ever going to get. And now all the skins were free, so thank you for giving me $50,000 worth of Iron Man skins. I appreciate it for free. But the thing is like in that regard, it's like, you know, to see the companies go under. But I know that was never like no company seeks to go under, you know. So, and like you said, it's how is volition, for example, the recent casualty in the modern gaming landscape. Are they 100% to blame? I don't think so. I think, and is the game 100% to blame? I don't think so. Is some of YouTube and people who influence to blame? I think some of it, but not entirely. But there's a lot of factors, right? So it's interesting to think like, well, how many people, because they, you know, we've talked about this, they review games at launch, and I really sometimes wish they would just not do that and let it get patched and then review it. You know, they can't really do that. But how many people are different people to blame? It's Volition to me was like a perfect storm of like, well, you put out the game, it's a reboot, you marketed it in a way that wasn't really true to the game. It was much more similar to Saints Row 3, but you didn't market it as such, and you decided to go the political route and do everything you could to not piss anybody off, which the previous Saints
had no identity.
Yeah, and so it's like, and then because it came out, not just the bugginess of it, but because of the story, different things, all these major YouTubers were like, well, I don't like it, or this is what I have a problem with, and these people are insufferable, or this people, or this. Like I was saying with the characters, they're not likable or memorable. They're not Gat, they're not Kinsey, they're not Pierce, they're not the Saints, they're not Shandy. I can remember those people's names from 20 years ago when I was playing Saints Row 2. I cannot remember the name of the current Saints at all. And I've been playing the game. What does that tell you? So I look at it like, I hate to see a company go under because they are talented. But at the same time, you know, you probably did some of this.
You've got to make good decisions.
Yeah, you did some of this yourself. And you should have known. You should have known. Now, if the publisher of your game was like, you know, which is THQ Nordic, they're like, okay, well, you know, we need you to do this or we need you to do that. We never know. The biggest problem with the game industry as a whole, as a large, is their just absolute need for secrecy. If a game does well and is successful, they talk their ears off to the developers and, hey, your game was awesome, and this is, how did y'all come about this? And you hear all the praise. If a game is negatively received, like they never go back and talk to the fucking people that made it and say, hey, got some questions for you. If you mind doing an interview? Well, sure. What happened here? What's going on with the direct? We got to hear it like third and fourth hand from Jason Schreier and others and leaks. And I'm like, why is the game industry so fucking secretive in that way where it's like, I'd like to know, well, why did they make the decision to make the game the way they made it? We'll never know. And which is like, I mean, we're going to find out where Hoff is buried before we find that. And it's like, I just want to know. It's interesting. Yeah.
Me, some of that stuff, though, too, is like, you know, at some point, and it's not just games, it's stuff I see all over. You know, at some point, somebody looks at something and is like, you know, we really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
We did a good job with this. And it's like, no, it's shit. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, like at some point somebody looked at that game and I'm like, you know, this is really shaping up.
Yeah, this is looking great.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's bad judgment in there.
Well, you know, we're not at the company, but I guarantee you, in the making of Saints Row or the making of Avengers or the making of Gollum or the making of any of these companies that are folded now, there was probably employees there going, like any company, and you've worked for companies and you own a company now, but like any company, you go like, I mean, you were a manager at Walmart, so was I. And we're just like,
don't agree with this, but
like
this is
what
where I'm
this
going.
is where we're going. Like, well, why the fuck are we doing this again? It's like this is stupid.
Yeah.
This is not going to work. So I'd almost put money that there was people who were like, got a question. If we do this, they're going to hate it. Well, don't just get back to work. And that goes to that whole idea of upper management dealing with the lowly employees. And I guarantee you, there was employees there that said, not maybe the vast majority of them, there's some that just toe the line, drink the Jim Jones Kool-Aid, but there's some that are probably sitting there going like, hey Jim, why the fuck are we doing this? Is stupid. Why the fuck are we doing this? So I'd almost put that money in there. But it is a shame, though. I do hate to see companies go under, because the way I see it is, unless somebody decides, well, let's reboot Saints again, we'll probably never see another Saints game. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
because I've always liked the series, always. So.
Yeah, I mean, anymore, if the people are that talented, they'll go somewhere else. If they're a great team, they'll find a way to come together again, and somebody's going to own the rights to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, like Saints Row was a new franchise at one point, like when it was GTA.
True.
And it's like, okay, we don't have the license GTA, so we're making Saints, this really different thing.
Yes.
And it grew. So, Saints is an IP, but it's really just a generic, started out as a generic GTA clone. So
basically, yeah.
I mean, I feel like, if talented people wanted to create the next iteration of that and do it justice, I feel like it'd find its way.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right about that. It might be a couple years.
But it is
could
a bummer. I mean, I hate seeing so many of these companies and names that's been around forever, bites the dust over.
Yeah, it's true.
Dumb stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, it's probably just, I think, talking about modern gaming as we are, and expectations and whatnot. Modern gaming today is just brutal. It's because of social media, and because you cannot release a game even remotely fucked up, even if it's like patched a week later. Like, the damage is done. Like, the online community, just, you're fucking crucified, right? Because if it's some like small title, like a Spiders roleplay game that typically never has bugs or anything, and might get one update. Most of the games only get one, and it's like you don't really hear much about that. It's because the eyeballs are on the big games. As every year I can expect 100 videos on why Madden is shit, right? Every year I can get a slew of videos on Call of Duty being great.
Other side,
yeah,
too,
yeah.
Right? Like, Call of Duty's got its problems and its things, and people hate about it. Same every year, like we were talking about, But it's going strong, making more money than ever. So
Yeah.
I don't even think you really gotta be perfect or make people happy. You just gotta have something addicting, I guess.
Well, yeah, I agree.
You gotta create like that cultural demand that,
Well, and you gotta look too, what developer in their right mind would be like, hey guys, we're thinking about a game develop. What if we did a multiplayer, focus-centric military shooter? Well, fuck that. It's like
we're on Call of Duty.
Yeah, like you're not going to win that war. And I think Battlefield is its probably strictest competition. And really, is it really? Because the last game I got for free, and the one before that they made free, and the one before that they made free. I haven't paid for any Battlefields in a long time, and while the new Battlefield is pretty good, but that's after like a bazillion patches and a year later, and it was really bad. And I still like look at it like when I play it, I'm like, it's Battlefield, obviously, but it's different too. And I look like that's really COD's.
Lost its identity.
Yeah, and that's really COD's only real competition. Who else is making multiplayer-centric military shooters? Like, nobody. I mean, if there are, they're just indie stuff, and
Well,
most
and I
people
think
don't. Yeah,
I think if you put anything as far as competition, it wouldn't be military. It would be Fortnite.
yeah, that would be the closest. But
It's
Fortnite,
about just the multiplayer, like microtransaction shooter style thing. But like it's somewhat of a different audience.
yeah,
Like Call of Duty's kind of got the more mature crowd. Somewhat, like it it's tailored a little more towards an older audience.
no, I agree.
But young people play Call of Duty and old people play Fortnite, so there's really no. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's room for both, I suppose. Obviously.
Well, I find it interesting that to see the life cycle of that game, and again, it's another one of those companies that they're like the Madden of shooters. We're going to put one out every year, and we're going to put one out not even a year, every 11 months. We've been remaking our old titles that people wax nostalgia over anyway. I haven't been interested in playing COD. I'm interested in Modern Warfare 3 that's coming out because that's what I started with back in 2011, or I think it was 11. So it's like that's the one I first ever played and got into with you guys, and I enjoyed it.
One thing I like about that is all the stuff, like like the skins and weapon, like
Yeah,
things like that. That progresses to Modern Warfare 3.
yeah.
This too. I like that.
I think though, like I said, it is a shame that companies are kind of living and dying on their one title, but I think that's just how it is nowadays. You're either going to, especially in the AAA landscape, like it's a minefield and I feel bad for developers, these big companies that develop games, and they probably sit around thinking, man, I mean, I wouldn't want to work for them because I would be like, man, if this doesn't work, that could be the end of my job. I mean, not that I won't get another job, but it's holy shit, right? And then you go to a job interview, you worked on that game, so it's like, does that follow you? So I don't know, but no, but we've been going pretty long tonight on this, so we can wrap it up if you like. But real quick, it is now September 30th. We've been past the midnight mark. We got September 31st, and of course, the Gaming Roundtable's annual third year of the Halloween Spooktacular. Going to do my best to play a different horror game and maybe some old familiars. I've been buying a couple here and there on the indie thing to check out. For the Halloween Spectacular horror gameplay every night, John and I are going to do one of the nights. I think we're going to just discuss horror games and horror movies and talk about what we like and dislike. We'll do a table talk on that if you would like to do that. I think that'd be great.
I misunderstood. I thought it was horror games.
Games and movies. We're going to do horror games and movies. Yes, we're going to talk about
horror movies.
Yes, horror movies, and not horror. No, not horror. We're not doing horror movies. No, we don't want to watch those. That's something that would keep our channel clean. This channel. You go to our other channel, which is we'll talk about the Diddlator 3000, but it's just a product you can buy. But anyway, no, but we're going to be doing that, I think, and like I said, I always look forward to it. It's kind of like the highlight of the year for my channel is the Halloween Spooktacular, and I'll have to get out the old PS camera, and I've got some, like I said, there's going to be some old favorites. I am interested in the fact that they're putting a PS5 version out of Slender the Arrival with some updated stuff on that. That's looking pretty sweet. I just purchased Paper Dolls, and I only played it very briefly just to kind of get a feel. Yep, that's going to be a scary one. I've got the PS5 version of Dread out now from the upgrade. I'm looking forward to playing because that game literally scared the bejesus out of me last year. And there's some other ones that I'm going to try to
There's
pick
that
up.
PS Plus one coming out too. That one I played,
The Callisto,
Callisto.
yes,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna when that comes out, I'll be playing through that, showing you all a little bit of that. So there's some new horror and some old favorites, of course. But I've got to play some Outlast, and I've got to play some. I'd like to play some Resident Evil, and uh, and I'll throw a couple other oddball like horror games in there, Tormented Souls and things like that, because there is some good. Seems like indie horror, some of that stuff is really good, and some of it's kind of like meh. But for the most part, it's been pretty good, and looking forward to doing that. And the Halloween Spooktacular is what's coming up on the Gaming Roundtable. What's coming up for you, man, on the Posthumanguy? What do you got planned coming up for Unpaid Gamers?
Well, moving through the games as they come out. So we do have to talk about another big title that came out though before we go.
Okay.
But that aside, as far as what I'm gonna do, there's just a lot of games coming out. Spider-Man 2 is coming out, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna be checking that out. I'm sure I'll stream some of that. I'm gonna re-download Cyberpunk now and check out the DLC for that. And I don't know, I'm just making my way in the new stuff. Right
Yeah.
now, I've been grinding on Call of Duty. Really, the whole time we've been talking, mindlessly. Not really any good, but because they introduced Spawn in the
Yeah.
current battle pass for it, and that's my character. So
Nice.
got to do some grinding on that and unlock, the kind of full-on Spawn operator thing for whatever reason. I kind of hated. I liked that they did it, but it was like, man, like now I got to play Call of Duty to unlock Spawn, and then
Yeah.
after I unlock after, so
Yeah.
so
I'm tracking you there. Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Just playing through new stuff. Gonna be checking out those Switch games I mentioned.
Hmm.
I'm also grinding through another title, and that's the other big one that came out that I want to talk about before I go, which is Mortal Kombat 1.
Yes. MK1. Yes.
I've been playing through that. So
Clear. And I like the fact that they're doing like a basically like in Mortal Kombat multiverse, which is interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, instead of MCU, it's MKU. So it's kind of it's neat. I like the stuff they've been doing with it. I find I actually watched. I spoiled it, but I watched a YouTube video and saw like every fatality, and I was like, "That's brutal." Like some of that stuff is brutal. I mean, like even from
yeah.
MK. So, but it was awesome, and I'll pick it up at some point for sure.
So it's a solid game. Now, I have some things to say about. I have a few problems, and it does prove that like even NetherRealm, like they gotta watch it in a
Yeah.
certain sense. Like there's some areas for improvement here.
Hmm.
They need to pay attention. So um, yeah, so essentially, MK11 ends with Liu Kang defeating Kronika and you know the Keeper of Time and all this stuff, and so then this one picks up right after that, and basically Liu Kang wipes the universe and just kind of creates this whole new universe, and a lot of the characters are rebooted, reimagined. The big evil element characters, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, stuff like that, they've been kind of given like meaningless lives to kind of neutralize them in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the basis of the story. And like a lot of things are weird and different. Um, like Scorpion and Sub Zero are brothers now, in a
Instead
sense.
of instead of rivals, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still kind of different. Like Bihan is Sub Zero, and instead of dying, and the younger brother taking up the mantle, the younger brother's the mantle of Scorpion.
Yeah.
And like it's like that, and certain elements are changed. Um, Shao Kahn is not the ruler of Outworld. He's um, General Shao now. He's not
Yeah.
Khan. Sindel's the ruler of Outworld, and it's much more peacefully ruled and stuff like that. And then like the story mode basically, without spoilers and stuff, like elements happen that kind of disrupt that balance, and it goes from there.
Gotcha.
Right. And then it leads into there is some multiverse elements in there and stuff like that. And it gets way more complicated by the end, and it's like, oh well, this isn't as basic as I thought it was going to be. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I almost would have enjoyed not getting back into that as crazy,
Yeah.
and just kind of sticking a little more with the vibe that Mortal Kombat 1 initially gives off.
Okay.
I don't know that you would really understand that statement until you play through the whole thing, the story.
Uh-huh.
Not to say where it ended up was bad or any of that stuff. I think I think they were onto something good, and um, just for my taste, I would have liked for them to have gone a little bit differently with some things. That's the story mode, though. Gameplay wise, it's as solid as ever. It's a super solid fighting engine, I think. Everything feels good. Everything, it's like it looks incredible. The backgrounds are incredible. Um,
Yeah,
the
so
cameo,
the character
the
models are
ca-
great.
yeah. The cameo system is really cool, and it's basically, you hit a button and a cameo fighter jumps in to either kind of further combo or to like get you out of a situation real quick. Like for instance, Scorpion, I use him a lot as a cameo, mainly because I play a Sub Zero a lot.
Yeah.
So just that's a cool duo for me. But you can, so like you pick your fighter and then you pick your cameo fighter. Um, the detail in the cameo fighters, they're almost more dumbed down version. Like they're not as detailed as the main
Huh.
fighters,
Interesting.
as far as look goes. But like you call them in with a button, and it's got a cooldown timer, and like you can hit, a direction and call and hit the button, and they kind of do different things. So like Scorpion, at one point he can use a spear and pull you back away from the enemy, like a retreat.
Okay.
Or he can come in and like slice them with their swords, or he can come in and blow fire in the air to
Yeah.
hit him. It all depends on how you want to use it. Um, there's fatalities. All the cameo fighters have fatalities, which is interesting too. And most of those are kind of throwbacks of like what I've seen so far, throwbacks of the original fatalities, right? Like
Hmm.
uh, Scorpion's a main character, but he's also a cameo fighter. So like he has his main fatalities, but he also has his cameo fatality, which is where he takes off his mask and does like the toasty
Yeah, I
fatality.
actually saw that on the YouTube video. All they showed the cameo ones, and it was
Yeah,
like all the classic fatalities. Yeah.
yeah. All the fighters, what I've seen so far, have two fatalities each, and like nothing else. So I
Gotcha.
think that's kind of basic. I don't know why. I haven't seen any stage fatalities, which is kind of a bummer. Um,
No, even on the fatality video, there was no stage, no friendships, no any of that silliness. None
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
None of that was in the game.
Which, I don't know. I don't like my Mortal Kombat 2 silly, but
Yeah.
I don't know why they can't ever do more than two fatalities per character ever.
Yeah, it just
Seems
seems.
strange
Yeah.
to me.
That's just. But I think that's something they've been like. They kind of sticks with what they always usually do. I mean,
Yeah,
not that I say it's.
it, it's got the brutality system like
Yeah.
11 does and stuff, so
Yeah.
that's something. Um, it has like customization somewhat, but it's more limited than 11, I think. You do have like different skins. You can
Uh,
swap out like typically like one element per fighter. Like,
okay.
Sub Zero, you can swap out his mask, and that's about it.
Gotcha.
You can do like the skins, and you can do color palettes and stuff like that. Um, you know, so it feels a little limited there. There's no crypt at all, which is a bummer to me.
Yeah, that is. When
Um,
you told me that, I was like, really? Because the
yeah,
last one was really neat because it was almost like its own little adventure game. And then even before that, like in 10, it was walk around, in a graveyard. But the crypt, I've always enjoyed the crypt.
me too. Me too. So no crypt here. Instead, we have what's called invasions.
Yeah.
So you have the story mode, which it's about on par length with the other story modes. It's not super long.
Uh,
Invasions is like it's kind of like Mario Party in a sense. Like you got these Mario Party style boards,
uh,
and you move from space to space, and there's challenges there, and mostly challenges are just fights, and the
yeah.
fights like have weird modifiers and stuff, and it's kind of like the towers in the
Gotcha.
previous game.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a test your might because that's in the game again.
That's nice. I like that.
Um, and you just move around these spaces and like complete space after space, which is fight after fight basically, and
Yeah.
till you clear it, and then you move on kind of to the next one, and you unlock things as you go, and currency, and
Uh huh.
you get chests, and you get things like that. Um, and then it's supposed to change per season,
Okay.
which is like 6 weeks or something like that. And there's so many, and it takes a long time to clear each of these little worlds, and there's like 5 or 6 of them
Okay.
in the
Okay.
season. I've been kind of hammering at it for a little bit, and I'm only on like the second one or something.
Oh, wow.
But it feels very grindy, and it's kind of monotonous. And my biggest problem with it is, like I said, each one of these worlds take forever to kind of work your way through all these little spaces, and it's like they pull from the same like fighter pool of like 4 or 5 fighters.
I see.
So like, the first one, it was like I would fight. Okay, here's a fight with Raiden. Okay, now I fight Kung Lao. Okay, now I fight Garrus. And
Mm-hmm.
then okay, now I fight Kung Lao. Oh, and then
I
here's
see.
Garrus again. And then now
Oh,
there's the and then okay, now we're doing a endurance match. Oh, guess who I'm fighting? 3 versions of Raiden. Or and here's a
that seems
power
strange
version.
given the
And
amount of characters in the roster.
yeah, and then like the only time you kind of get reprieve is sometimes you get these little hidden fights or these assault fights that I forget. I think that's what they're called. Randomly when you're moving from space to space, you'll get jumped. And
Okay.
sometimes that's a different fighter.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes you'll beat one fight, and then it's like these throwback images of those little purple floating monks from two. You know what I mean
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
and it's like secret fight, and you think it's going to be something cool, but it's really just a regular fight.
Gotcha.
Um, and then like when you make it to the next world, then you move to like a different set of 3 or 4 fights. So now I'm on the second one, and I'm fighting like Rain 1,000 times or Reiko 1,000 times,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and it's like I don't like they could have mixed it up a whole lot more, and they don't even call them that really. They're called like generic thing, like Lightning Man or something. Like you know, it's kind of how
Huh.
they do in the story modes, to where they're generic versions of the
Yeah.
fighters.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's still you're just fighting the same ones.
It sounds like to me that not that the mode's terrible or anything, but it sounds like to me it's like you should have just give us the crypt. you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it is something to work through, I
Yeah.
suppose. And if you're just about having fights and getting better, and like I mean, it is a fighting game, so the goal is to fight, and that's the main thing. Um, so it does give you an objective, I suppose,
Yeah.
but it's very monotonous, very grindy. It feels, you know, like it's kind of a waste of a mode in a sense. And I
Hmm.
don't know. Hopefully, it will improve over time. But you know, you got that. You got your online mode. Um, you know the gambling shrine they had in the crypt in the
Yes,
other one.
yes.
That's in there, but it's in its separate little menu, and you just
Okay.
go there and it's there. Um, like that's kind of it, really. And that's the thing. Like it's a solid fighting game, and I like it, and I like doing the stuff. You know, there is like in one of those little worlds, you can go to this thing, and it's filled with nothing but towers that rotate. You know, weekly
Hmm.
or monthly or whatever. But I don't know. It's like it feels very bare bonesish. You know,
Hmm.
especially when like 11 was so cram packed full of everything.
That's true. 11 had a lot in it. That is very true.
I know
Yeah.
they can't keep that kind of thing up forever, but like coming off of that, it's kind of like, okay, like this is it. Is this it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But and the thing is that I know going from 11 to 1, essentially restarting the whole series. Uh,
Yeah.
it's they were like, it sounds like that they just the fighting and everything is exactly what it needs to be with minor improvements or slight adjustments to the characters, but which is what you want. You want Mortal Kombat to play and feel like Mortal Kombat, so it's rock solid there. Everything else is like, well, if we give them crypt and we do this and we do that, it's more or less we're giving them like kind of similar, because like the customization thing in 11 was neat, except it was very grindy, and there was like 5 or 6 different currencies and microtransaction, currency that you could buy, and it went a little too much, and they got a lot of flack for it, and they retooled some of it, later, down the road. This one sounds like to me they were trying to get away from that, but
There is three
try,
different currencies, by the way.
yeah. Well, maybe they weren't trying to, but it's the thing is that you know, I guess trying to give instead of the crypt, they wanted to do something else, and I don't know if it's because maybe Ed Boon and them felt like, well, we do the crypt all the time. We've done it in several games now. Let's try this other thing, and that might have been their way of, just trying to change it up, and hoping that people would really like it. But I think too, talking to anybody that plays Mortal Kombat when the crypt first started coming out, we just like the crypt. Like people just like the idea of it. Like 10 was you
Yeah.
got to walk around different environments. 11 was like you walked around with a character, and it was like you were exploring,
I think that
and
was
it
the
was
best version of it,
yeah, it
regardless.
was really neat because it actually kind of harkened back to what was it? The ones that you roamed around and played through like a story. I always liked that. That was
Like
really
Shaolin
cool.
monks and stuff.
Yes, that was well the ones that were like Shinjuku and you were walking around and you
Yeah,
went
yeah,
from
yeah. Yeah.
world to world, and that was really
Like the
cool.
Sept and everything.
Yeah, and those were good. And I give credit to Ed Boon and them to try to give us. I haven't played it, but to try to do something different. But at the
Yeah.
same
And
time,
that's the thing. If you follow the series, you know, like almost everyone, it's there is always something different. And
yeah,
so I can't like fault them for doing it.
no,
And it is a cool concept. You know, and then on the other hand, and okay, we are rebooting. We're going back to the basics, whatever. You know, this is a fresh start. Forget what we've done in the last one. This is, you know, and this is potentially something to build off of from here.
yes,
Um, you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, again, following the series for that long, there's been misses along the way too in the old
yes,
games, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily a miss. I think it's just there's definitely some work to be done. I think to
yeah,
really bring it up to the standard that we would want it to be as a
yeah, because they're already
30-year
talking
Mortal
about.
Kombat player. You know,
Yeah, no kidding. I think I think with updates and whatever DLC they decide to put out, they'll probably shore up a lot of that in the end. And it's a good thing that Mortal Kombat doesn't come out every year. So it's like
Yeah.
it's good that it's every so often, and so which seems to always coincide with a new Street Fighter, which is interesting. And they may have done Away with the Crypt because it done something different because Street Fighter 6 did the whole pseudo basic open world. You're in Metro City, make your own fighter, change it up, and but kept the normal game modes, but then added. And I played the demo of that and sold. I was sold on it immediately with the creative player and the free roaming aspects and challenging people. I already watched a lot of videos on MK1. No story stuff because I didn't want to be 100% spoiled. Sometimes they're unavoidable, but it looks totally great. I have owned Mortal Kombat pretty much down the line, all the way around. I have 11, I have 10. I had the previous versions, different games. So when I just, unfortunately, Mortal Kombat 1 came out, I just didn't have the money. So I'm kind of waiting on a sale for it, which I assume will probably be sooner rather than later because it's always a big selling game. So once it goes down to 30, $40, then I'll be like, yeah, I'll pick it up now. I try to stay within a certain budget, with those games. Certain games I don't mind paying 70. I love Mortal Kombat. I've been playing it for years. So I'm just figuring out that what I've seen on it thus far, it does look rock solid, and that's definitely a game that I'm interested in picking up.
Yeah, and as a long-term Mortal Kombat player since the beginning,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy with it. I'm enjoying it. It's just some things I would have liked to be different or like to see expanded upon, and there's some areas where I feel like Mortal Kombat continues to almost just barely fall short on certain things. Like I said,
yeah,
and maybe it's just a preference of like what I would want, what I'd like to see, why they're holding back on certain things.
yeah.
And two, they talked about supporting this one for quite a while, so I don't really know exactly what that means. I know they're gonna do more fighters, more cameo fighters. Um, they're obviously gonna update the invasion stuff. There's gonna be new stuff in the store because there's a revolving store now.
Hmm.
Um, I don't. They haven't said anything about doing story mode DLC, but we've seen that with the last one, so that would
True.
be cool.
Yeah, true.
Um, we never really seen like DLC fatalities or anything, but I would like to see them do that at some point.
That would be good. That would
Um,
be a good thing.
and it's almost set up like that. So like, so if you go into, there's a customization screen. If you
Hmm.
go into that, you pick either your roster or your cameo fighter. So
Hmm.
say you go to like Sub-Zero as a roster character.
Hmm.
From there, it has I forget what it calls it, but it's basically like your chosen accessory or whatever
Hmm.
for the character. In his case, it's his mask.
Hmm.
So you can go in there and pick from all these different ones that you've unlocked or bought or whatever. Um, you can go into like your skins. Or it calls it something else, but you go in there. There's all your skins, your palette of colors that you've unlocked. Same way. It also has a spot for stunts and fatalities and stuff.
Okay.
And fatalities, it's weird. So like, there's this whole character mastery system, and like,
Hmm.
basically, the longer you play with a character, you kind of level it up, and you unlock things as you go, and you unlock like potentially skins. You unlock brutalities that show up in the moves list.
Okay.
You unlock palettes of colors. You unlock, you know, different shit like that.
Okay, that's
Um,
interesting.
so if you go into like this fatalities thing in the character customization, you'll see like a spot for brutalities, and as you unlock them, it shows a little small image of them there,
Uh
and
huh.
then there's a spot for fatalities, and it shows a small image there. But
Okay.
like you can't click on them, you can't like It doesn't show you what it is. You can't open it on there and see the movements. It's just like, here's kind of what you have unlocked.
Okay. Okay.
So like, it's almost set up in the customization screen like in akin to skins and stuff. You just can't pick things. Like, I wonder if the plan is to add more of those things for characters.
That's a possibility. That is a possibility. It
Because why
sounds
else
like
would it be there?
that's true. They might be planning that, and that'd be something new and interesting, exciting to get into. If they're going to add the ability to or add new fatalities, that's what people. That's a big sell point of the game. So I think that would make sense, especially given that that wouldn't be that hard to do or implement. So
And they've never done it, and I don't know why they haven't done it. Really.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
really haven't. No.
it seems easy to implement. I mean, it's not like it's a mechanic of the game.
Yeah.
It's an animation basically that you're adding.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, with an input,
There's a
button.
taunt section. That's also and you can select what taunt. So like you unlock those as you go to.
Oh, that's neat.
So I don't know. I find it weird that that's in that customization screen, and like, you know, even when you unlock like 6 brutalities, for example, it's not like
Yeah.
you select which ones you're activating in that screen at all. It's just it kind of shows a little image summary that you kind of have these, but you can't do anything from there.
Gotcha.
It shows up in your move list in the pause menu or whatever. It's now unlocked in there, but unless it's just showing like here's your summary of how many of these you got. But I don't know. I hope it's a preview of something that they can pursue in that sense. But
It sounds like it. I mean, it sounds like that's the direction they're headed with that. That's what it sounds like to me. Well, we'll see. Time will tell. And speaking of time, it's getting later, and we've gone along as usual here on the Table Talk, but we don't do this too often. So, but again, please check out Posthumanguy. He'll be doing some streaming here soon for you with some different games, and I will be definitely streaming some Axis Football 2023 for you here. Then probably tomorrow I'll play a full game for you all to kind of showcase some of the stuff I'm playing for your alternative football game to Madden. Also, I'll be going back to the Innosphere again. I'm going to be streaming some more Mech Warrior for you all, show you some more things that I have found out about the game that's interesting, and show you a little bit more about that. And of course, the Spooktacular Halloween is coming up in the next couple days. With a horror game every night. Now, I do work third shift, so some of my nights I'm usually at work, going in Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. So some of this I might have some weird hours when I'm doing it. I'm going to try very hard. I might be doing it early before I go to work because I usually have to be at work by 10:30. So if I go in, it might be 8 o'clock when I start playing them, or it could be a little earlier just to get some time in. But I'm going to do my best to do these when this starts to play a horror game for you guys through the month of Halloween. And of course, on my nights that I am off, I will be doing it at night, or at least later on the evening. And so I'm going to do my best to do that, and bring you all another year of this Spooktacular Halloween special for the Gaming Roundtable, brought to you, of course, by Unpaid Gamers on YouTube.com, occasionally Twitch, but mostly YouTube. And please check out and still subscribe and check out Banloss's videos for the Apex Legends gameplay. They're still great to watch, and maybe he'll come back one day and do some more Apex Legends for us. And please check out Posthumanguy. Subscribe to Unpaid Gamers today. Hit that like button. Hit the bell. You will become an official Knight of the Round Table. If you have any questions or comments about tonight's videos, please leave a mark below. Or you can write me at gamingroundtableupg@gmail.com. All one word, gamingroundtableupg@gmail.com. John, any final thoughts before we leave our audience tonight?
Nope.
There you have it. He has no comments, and we will be back again. Tonight's episode, we talked a lot about expectations. We deep dived into the sports and stuff with Madden and other sports titles along that lines. We talked about the games we've been playing. We talked. John went on and gave us very good remarks about Starfield and also the new Mortal Kombat that came out. And just getting into and talked about various game companies that closed tonight. And again, please hit the like button, subscribe to Unpaid Gamers Today, where we bring you the latest and greatest news sometimes, streaming games. There's so much coming out, and of course, with Brooktober upon us, there's a lot of games coming out, so it's going to be crazy. And a lot of stuff to check out. So we're going to try to bring you as much content as we can, as long as life don't get too much in the way. And again, the Halloween Spooktacular is about to begin, and that's always, I look forward to it. So again, thank you all for tuning in tonight to Table Talk. We went long, but we always go long, it seems like, on this. And we will see you all on the next episode of the Gaming Roundtable. And as always, gamers, good gaming.